Hey, a lot earlier than I've been lately. This is a huge win for me. A huge personal big. One day I'll start at a reasonable time. One day. Any which way. So we're just gonna get started. We're gonna get back to our playthrough. Yeah, we'll go from there. So if anyone wants to talk, type in chat. Let me know. Love to have you. Okay, all right. So let's get ourselves all set up. Ba-ba. Go. Thing. Alright. Yeah. Very excited. Some more Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know how long this game is. I actually have no idea. It's not clear to me. I've been trying to be pretty thorough in like completing all the side missions. So I don't know. It's oh, look at me. Oh, look at me in this scenery. Oh, look at oh, so sexy. Oh, look at that. Oh, oh my god. Oh my. Oh, oh, oh. That's money. That's money. Look at the scenery. Look at this. Oh, is this not beautiful and cinematic? Look, you see this? Fucking Moonlight Warrior here. Oh, fuck. Can I take a screenshot? Let's see. Take a screenshot. Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. I never take screenshots. But goddamn. All right. Just had to say that. Okay. What the fuck are we doing now? I don't know. All right. So there are basic missions. That's these white markers. There are slightly harder basic missions. That's these red markers here. And there are these uh story side quests. Just here, I got these people's faces on there, and so we've been doing those, and those are good because the side characters are great. And then there are the actual main story missions, and those are in gold. So we're avoiding the main story missions right now. We're just like clearing everything else out. So this thing is much for me right now. This thing is uh this one's like literally too high level. Like the game told me that when I wrote past this camp, this was like literally just too high level for me to handle. So maybe that stuff, maybe these actually I can't these aren't actually missions, aren't they? Yeah, they aren't missions now. They're just places I can go and start killing people. Alright, I think I will oh, and the blue ones are like legend missions. They like give you something important. Um I think I'll do more of the story side quests. I got one that's not too far from here too. An 8. Okay. I'll do this one. All right. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. All right. Yeah, that's right. We're not too far away from it either. Oh, there's a group of bandits. Yeah, let's fight this dude. Alright, who's next? And you are... Ah, fuck! Oh, ooh, didn't see you. What the fuck did that sound? Oh, is that their bird? are these guys doing around here? Huh. Nice. Just like a random burnt out area. Okay. Usually when they're like running around here, they're like doing a thing. They're like guarding something. Nothing here? Okay, it's fine. Usually they're doing something. Alright, anyway. Get over your horse. And... Alright, guess we're going this way. Oh, these are really thick thickets. What is it? Just a random dude? Oh, dead dudes. Oh, shit. Okay. Alright. I'll take your shit. Alright, where are we going? Where are we going? Okay. I'll find someone who may have seen Ishikawa. Alright. Let's... Oh, let me grab this flower. Here. Alright, great. Oh, there's someone in chat. Hey, Aiko. You great, beard. I'm envious, and that's saying something. Oh, haha. Oh, haha. Sorry. Sorry, Aiko, I missed your message before. Hope you're doing well. Are you still there? Alright, let's see. Hey, Jack. Hello, hi. What's shaking, Prime? Yeah, just gaming. If anyone wants to, like, have a conversation, let me know. But yeah, just, Oh, here. Alright. Guessing this is the person guy I talked to?
何の話だ。旅のアキュードを襲っているんだろう。弓の達人と手を組んで。石川先生か。ありえぬ。あれはあんたの声だった。声だと？いつだ？ついさっきだ。腹を空かせた獣のように暴れ回ってただろう。
Yeah, you could jump in. All right, cool. Let's have a conversation. All right.
何故我らが追いはぎの濡れ衣を着せられる。北へ行けば真相がわかるか。
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Tell me about your day.
It was my day off, my first day off in a while.
Okay.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of prepping.
Yeah, I guess like school has started, like the school year is back up and running.
Yeah, and you know, I have a fundamentally different job this year than I normally have, so it's a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah.
I actually have parents that care, so I'm kind of getting used to that.
Okay. Yeah, are they because they're paying directly because you're doing the private thing, right?
Yeah, they pay by the hour, and it's, you know, not cheap. And just culturally, like, they're just, you know, they have a different approach to education than, you know, parents and public school districts that have taught in the past. So it's less of an initial learning curve for the kids, which is nice. We can get straight into a little bit more advanced stuff. But also some of the kids are a bit younger because they're starting earlier, which is great. But it means that we're going to have to do a lot of building up, you know, over the next couple of years. It takes about 2 years to build a debate program. And then after that, it gets easier. But those first 2 years are always hell.
Why 2 years?
Well, most programs, successful ones anyway, they do peer coaching, or they rely heavily on peer coaching. So if you're, let's say you're doing a high school shop, which is what most schools are. So your freshmen come in, or your freshmen, it's really it's sophomores, because you have to be pretty good at recruiting the freshmen to even know the debate team exists and sign up for it while they're in middle school and that sort of thing. But so you'll get a lot of sophomores at the beginning, and kids of all ages. But you've got to train them up from scratch. You send them to debate camp in the summer if you're lucky, and you're coaching throughout the year. And it's always kind of a big race, like with novice debaters, because novice debaters in September are very different from novice debaters in March. And so if you get started late coaching them, then they're going to be hitting people at tournaments that know way more than they do, because they've had a lot more preparation, that sort of thing. And you, as one teacher, let's say you're one teacher and you've got 30 people on your debate squad, you've got to teach all 30 people, and you got to work with all of them individually. Whereas a couple years down the road, what you do is you take your experienced debaters and you say, okay, you are going to coach those two kids. Now go off into a room, go fuck off and come back in an hour. Tell me how it went. And that's kind of how it goes. And so you're almost closer to being on autopilot at that point. But you can't get to that point until you've trained a lot of kids, and those kids are really good and strong. And like they've debated it, if I can send them to TOCs or Harvard or some of those better tournaments, come back experienced. It takes a couple years to get to that point. So you work 3 times as hard in your first 2 years as you will later on. So I'm in the tear your hair out mode.
Is there a and this is just okay, so I'm a little confused how this works. Is this just you? Like, do you have like your own unit that you are building, or is it like you have a
yeah
team?
so this company that I'm working for, they're out of California.
Okay.
And I'm their first hire in this branch, and we've since hired 2 more people to come in after me, but they're teaching younger kids, so we're kind of not on the same page. And so what I'll do is we're going to start with practice debates. I've decided recently, instead of teaching debate theory straight off the bat to these kids, what I do is I just throw them in a debate. Because really in education, what works better than deductive reasoning is induction, where they're just in a debate and some things work and some things don't. And as they figure that out on their own, then I tell them the theory behind it after they've already encountered it. So they sort of inductively learn debate instead of deductively, because it's really boring if you're a kid and there's a teacher standing up at the board telling you 50 vocabulary words and these are what the 5 stock issues of the debate are and all these different rules. They don't retain but a fraction of it, and it becomes boring for them and everything else. But if you throw them in a debate and they just keep falling on their face and they don't know why, and then you can point out, okay, that's because of this, and you introduce the bit of theory there, suddenly it's more relevant to them. So, and that's a very recent thing. Up until recently, I've been doing sort of the old-fashioned thing where I teach them all of the theory in advance, and you might as well read Aristotle's rhetoric, in Greek, which is not. So it's shockingly, it's not as fun for a high school kid as it is for me. I don't know why that is. So we start with the fun stuff instead, which is they get to argue with each other and things like that, and then we just sort of iteratively improve, and they seem to enjoy that a lot better. So that's what we're doing. Lots of practice debates. Sort of make up the topics on the spot. Like the topic this year is NATO. I can read you the topic if you want, but right now I'm just sort of making up topics for them to debate that are increasingly more and more complicated. Like we're up to now. Yesterday I just resolve the United States federal government should close SeaWorld. I sort of made that one up. and that was they loved that one. Like the kids took to that one.
That does sound like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, it was fun to debate. So I just made that their homework. So now they're gonna spend a week like researching SeaWorld and coming up with all the arguments and coming up with a plan and counter plans and disadvantages and all of the all that briefs and stuff that you need for debate. But it won't be all that complicated because we'll throw it all away and do a new topic the next week until they're ready for the real topic for the year.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm pulling it up now because I still don't have it memorized. Yeah, here it is. The United States federal government should substantially increase its security cooperation with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and cybersecurity.
Okay.
So AI, that's kind of a fun topic.
Yeah.
But we're doing biotech. I think I already told you that. We're going to do my biomethane.
Huh?
So basically, cow shit. We're going to turn it into natural gas and send it to NATO so that they can get off Russian gas. That's our topic.
It's not a bad topic.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else has thought of it because most people, when they think biotechnology, they think like bioweapons and things like that. COVID, weaponized COVID or something like that.
Weaponized
But
COVID.
yeah, but we decided to interpret that as energy, and then we get to steer the whole. I love talking about energy policy, so that's our way of steering the topic towards energy policy. Sort of gives us an advantage. Sort of like how Fabian steers everything back to, getting rid of the state.
Yeah, he does. He's
Yeah.
got a habit of that.
Yes. That's a strategy,
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. We're going to steer everything to energy policy.
Like, and what are the ages again of the people you are dealing with?
Well, I'm a high school debate coach, but dipping into middle school under the theory that if I catch him in 7th grade, turns out, and I've never done this before, turns out you can enter middle school kids in high school debate tournaments. With the caveat that once you enter as a novice, it's sort of like how in football, you can get redshirted or whatever. You can only be a novice for 1 year. So once if I enter a 7th grade kid into novice so that they can learn and they debate novice all year, then they've got to debate varsity as an 8th grader, which is kind of a tough ask for kids. But these are some. So I got to look at the ones that I think can manage that, and I'm gonna put them in, and then I'm gonna redshirt the rest of them.
Redshirt.
Keep their eligibility. Well, just so that they can, it's just like
get the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see which ones I do that to.
I love the term red shirt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right. Because you think of it, right? I might have that term wrong for football. Isn't that what you also call it in football when you pull them out for a year so they can maintain another year of eligibility and?
I have no idea. You are asking the wrong person.
Okay, all right. Yes, it should have occurred to me that you were thinking Star Trek as soon as I said it. Which is kind of funny because you are kind of throwing them to the wolves when you enter them that early, so it kind of makes sense that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll never not think of that when I talk about it. It's called the sink or swim strategy.
Yeah. And do you feel that does it happen that kids get overwhelmed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of throwing them in tournaments early, so that they will get overwhelmed. Because debate kids tend to be really smart. Now I wouldn't do this to everybody, but debate kids tend to be really smart, which means they tend to underestimate the amount of work that they have to do in order to win. So you put them in a tournament and they go 0-4. They come out going, oh, shit, I've got work to do.
Hmm.
And that's sort of, it's kind of similar to the first week of AP Lit. Whenever I teach AP Lit, the first thing you have to do, usually with a lot of classes, the first thing you have to do is make sure that the kids aren't intimidated and they find that everything's accessible and all of that. AP Lit, it's just the opposite because you get all these GT kids coming into the class. And what they're trying to figure out in those first few days is whether or not you're going to waste their time. So you have to actually prove to them that you know something they don't. So I kind of do the opposite for those kind of classes. Like I have to just really turn it on and make it so that because they're just so used to being smarter than their teacher.
Oh wow.
And then they tune out. I mean, it just happens with GT. And so you've got to like come in at the beginning and like say, okay, here's a quiz, and everybody fails it, that sort of thing.
I don't know if I really had much of that attitude when I was, because I was in the monthly gift program.
Yeah.
And like I'm not sure if I've ever had that attitude necessarily of being smarter than my teachers.
But it's true. Like they are smarter than their teachers most of the time. And in a lot of cases, they know more as well. Like smarter, like intelligence and knowledge are not the same thing. But
fair enough.
The advantage a teacher should have is that they're more knowledgeable than their students. Like absolutely 100%, that should be the case. It's totally okay if the students are smarter, if they have a higher level of intelligence. In fact, I tell this to my kids all the time. You're all probably smarter than me because we get dumber as we age. Probably peak in intelligence around age 30, somewhere around there.
Huh.
Yeah. So I don't have the ability to obtain new information at the rate that I could have 30 years ago. But my advantage is that I've been learning over those 30 years. So like I know a lot of random shit. And so that provides context. In education, you call that schema, which is the prior knowledge that provides context for new learning. And so it seems like I can learn very easily, but I'm not really. It's just that I have a ton of context. So when I encounter something new, I know a lot of the context around it just because I'm old. And that makes it seem like I'm learning it fast, but I'm not. I'm probably learning it more slowly than teenagers are. Because teenagers are drinking from the fire hose, right? They're like learning shit every day. Sometimes I forget when I'm talking to class that people might not understand the context of World War II and the effects that it had on following decades, or the Civil War or something like that, American Revolution, like all of these things that seem really basic to an adult.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget when I'm talking to a 14-year-old, they may not have all that.
Well, basic to certain adults. Basic to certain adults.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. But I would like to think that adults at least know like what World War II is and who the Nazis were. Stuff like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, they'll... I'm actually curious now. I'm sharing my screen with you so you can at least see what I'm doing. But I'm curious. Like, if you gave people a test on World War II, like, how much basic knowledge would people have? Nazis bad, Jews dead. And like, I'm not even saying that I would even score all that high. Like how much do I actually know? Like, how much? I watch documentaries, but like, you just kind of.
You can always go deeper. No matter how much you know, there's always more. Yeah.
And like the effects. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Wikipedia deep dives. When I was a kid, my grandfather bought me the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? It was like 40 volumes. And I read that A to Z. And it was mainly because back then, I never would have done that if it were the age of the cell phone and that kind of connectivity or whatever. But back then, like, there wasn't much you could do. You could watch TV if you had it. I didn't always have access to a television, it just depended on, and if I did, like, cable was really boring back then. It was like really dumb stuff. So I was either watching Saturday morning cartoons on you know when those came on,
Uh-huh.
or I was reading.
森の中で
Mm.
偶然見かけたらしい。死なず
And
に済んだ。
today's version of that is doing those Wikipedia deep dives that everybody does, you know,
Yeah.
when they get bored.
お主が蘭か。
So
そうです。
when I was young, my
聞いておったか。
fourth grade,
と
fourth
は
or
い
fifth,
顔
my
は忘れもしません。
teacher suggested my
かつ
parents
てこの
get
地を
me
住
National
処にしていた
Geographic,
族と
and
Oh yeah,
盗んで
that
おりました
was
か
a huge thing.
first
So I had
exposure to
こ
titties.
れは麦の。
titties. No,
ら。ここ
No.
Okay, all right. I guess
don't-
not because you were young enough to where you had internet. When I was a kid, that was like, you know, a lot of people that was their introduction to nudity was National Geographic.
奴らの野営はどこに
I
ここから南西の森
with National Geographic, I had
西側の
there was a I remember there was
川の間です
an issue that talked about evolution, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
that was like the first time like I seriously questioned Christianity. I'm like, if this is a
Oh
thing.
boy.
Yeah, it was like the first or second issue that I got.
Yeah.
And my
It's
parents
such
are
an
Christian.
it's so unfortunate that that's the first thing that people think of when they start learning about evolution.
いさかいの前。
Yeah.
巴を用
But
心に
yeah,
と
that was the case for me too because I was Baptist. I was going to a
それは
Baptist
情
church or
報であった
whatever.
はず。
And when I first learned about it, like it didn't even occur to me that there was a contradiction. I was just like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And then I started inventing
元の暮らしに戻してしまう。
like connections to Genesis. I was like, "Well, Genesis does say that the first animals like came out of the water."
先生、
And that's
この先
you
す
know
べきことのお覚悟
that's what
はありま
Darwin
す。
says too. So that makes sense, you know. But when you're a kid,
私
you
は野営
know
を探すぞ。
that's where your brain goes.
So
これ以上罪を
Kind
重
of
ねる
embarrassing
前に
now,
止めねば。
when
You-
okay, so when I was young and that happened, I was in the fifth grade. So my parents were like we were Baptist evangelical, I guess.
Yeah.
And my
しかし味方は
my thought was
剣
like,
という
okay,
国
these
です。
things are clearly in conflict, but I can hold these two opposing truths in my head. Like I
な
actually
らば
made the
くさび
choice
を打ち込み
to like
優位に
hold
立ちま
two
しょう。
things that I felt were completely opposing. I'm like I don't need to
猛虎に対して弓を引くの
I
であ
don't
れば上
like I
手
say
に
I didn't need to reconcile these things, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
okay, right? I can hold on to this. And then as the years went by,
巴は大綱を脅かしてい
like
たそうですが
that wall kept
あやつが
collapsing
若かった
until
昔の
eventually
話
like
でし
it
ょう。
went all the way down. Not just for evolution, but for other reasons. But yeah, evolution. That was the start. Where I first questioned the whole thing.
See, that's what happened to me, and so I've always been an agnostic, although I didn't necessarily have the language for that when I was a Baptist.
他にもあったな。
But then I stopped being a Baptist, so I was kind of just an agnostic for a while. But it was right about then that I, you know, went to that Catholic college and like sort of discovered, oh shit, you don't have to check your brain at the door in all denominations. And so I, you know, that's what really did it for me. Like when I did my semester in Rome, like I visited the Vatican Observatory, I met the Vatican astronomers, and you know they had a big exhibit on evolution right there, right there at the museum that was attached to the
国は同じか。
telescope. It freaked me out.
錦の矢。
Okay. I'm thinking. Like you're saying
ムクロが
you're saying you don't have to turn off your brain in all denominations, but like
Right.
お前を見落とすでないぞ。
you
心得ております。
are you saying that
You don't have to check. You don't have to check in your brain in any religion, really. It just depends on what you know, what sect you're in, and what the philosophy is behind that sect.
yeah, but there are parts of the Bible that clearly contravene science.
Yes. Yes.
And are those part all metaphors then?
Yeah, I mean, you can interpret that as a metaphor, or you can even be more honest and just say, look, the people that were writing this stuff, like, they didn't know that, that the Earth went around the sun, for example, or they didn't know about the theory of evolution, or so you wouldn't expect them to write that shit. What you expect them to have, if it makes it into scripture, is this sort of deep intuition of how the moral world works, and the way that the language that they have for it. Remember, we talked about Vico and the thunderstrike, and the caveman who then put a voice to that thunderstrike, and that's how God came about for us. And so if you think of that as like the first metaphor, the first sort of deep intuition of a moral world that's attached to God, then over time, like, we start thinking more deeply and deeply and deeply about that. So, okay, so maybe this will make more sense to you in terms of the human psychology. Like, are you familiar with, like, the origin of the id and the ego and the superego, like how that develops in the early humans, according to Freud?
No, you could.
Okay, so here's how it works. It's really beautiful how this works.
Okay.
The id is just the very first thing when you're born. You're just an id. You don't have anything else. You're just an id, and you just want. You want to eat. You want to suckle at your mother's teat. You want to take a shit. You want to be clean. You want to be dry. You want to be comfortable. All of these things. Your id wants those things, but then you start to realize, as the human brain develops, it starts to realize that there's limitations in what you can have, what you can eat. Like, you can't just eat whenever you want to. You got to wait for your mother to come give it to you or whatever. And over time, you start to acknowledge what those limitations are. And that's what an ego is. The ego is always trying to give the id what it wants, but it has to prioritize things because it knows that you can't have everything you want. So the id says, okay, these are the ways that I'm going to provide the id these things. And so it's sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like food, clothing, shelter, that's the very first thing that the ego is going to try to organize and give to the id, right? But then you go up that hierarchy. And so you try to provide as much as you can. So that understanding of limitation, and then the attempt to overcome the limitations to the degree that you can, is called an ego. That's what the ego does.
Okay. Overcoming
But then,
limitations of your environment. Overcoming the limitations of your environment.
Yeah, that's what an ego is. It's the thing that feeds the id and sort of like deals with the limitations. Like the id doesn't understand limitations; it just wants.
Okay.
And so the ego is your ability to then like understand those limitations and try to transcend them. Okay, then but one of those limitations that you have is your parents. This happens at an early age. If you do something wrong, your parents might yell at you, or you might get punished, or you might get spanked, or whatever it is, the consequence is. And over time, you start to understand in advance that if I do this thing, my mother's going to punish me. And so what you do is you mentally, inside of yourself, you start anticipating what your parents would want, and then you start doing that. That's called a superego, right? Or a conscience. So the morality that we develop inside of ourselves is shaped by the avoidance of punishment in early childhood. And so out of the ego, which provides things for the id, grows the superego. That's why it's called a superego, because it grows out of the ego. Right, okay. So if you think of the superego, or your conscience, as the personification of your parents inside of your head, your parents could be long gone, that morality will still remain. So somewhere in your head is kind of like a model of your parents and what they would want. And it sort of grows. It's not just them, it's also society, and anyone else who has expectations of you might impact the development of your superego, right? And so, okay, so that's what a superego is. I would add to that God. When we hear that, so when Vico's, caveman heard that thunderclap, they started internalizing the voice of God in that. So it's very similar to the way we internalize parental authority, right? God is just an extension of that. And so over time, over millennia, we start developing wisdom that we think works in a moral universe. So we start trying to figure out, what does God want for our lives, and what are we expected to do, and how do we avoid getting hit by that thunderclap, right? Which is the ultimate punishment that like early man could imagine for himself. That's what theologians call that progressive revelation. It means that as scripture gets written over time, we refine our morality more and more, which is why in Christianity, at least, we consider the Gospels to be like the most refined, like the most intuitive sort of moral document in Christian history. Like the morality that's described in the Gospels are fundamentally more clearly something we would recognize than stuff that's in the Old Testament, for example. And that, anyway, and then we have something after that, which is called tradition, which is 2,000 years of church documents and shit like that. That's the best way I can explain how all of that works.
Let's go back to the superego for a second.
Yeah.
The superego, what that sounded like to me, and I could be completely wrong because I haven't really like dug into this. But it sounds like your understanding of like other people's needs, like
it turns into that, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
At first it's just avoidance of punishment, right? It's like a really basic thing, and to that degree it's really just the ego working. But over time, as it develops, if you have a very well developed superego, yeah, it's going to be based on the needs of others, and yeah, that's how we get the golden rule and all kinds of other moral systems.
So is that like your understanding of people's like, so there's this concept of like having a model. There's a term for this. I don't know what the term is. That's why it's giving me trouble.
Yeah.
Like having a model of someone else's mind, right? You know what I'm talking about? Like
sort of almost like object permanence, but for people.
Yeah. So like and they test this in like animals all the time, where they see if that animal like can understand this other being. It's called like a framework of mind. Like this other being also has a mind, and understanding like what that mind might be thinking. Okay, like like, if I steal a banana, will this other being understand that I took the banana? Right, like if it shows up and it looks, the banana's not there anymore, right? And I have the banana, like what's it going to do? Right, like so does the superego work anywhere like that? Well,
the superego, yes, absolutely does, because the superego depends on the idea that your parents like want you to do something. They generally want you to do things. So like one superego that's really a really simple example that I've just noticed in my family is my mother, if she has to take care of a child for like an extended period of time, like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, what she'll do is she'll really micromanage that person in certain ways at the very beginning. So like, for instance, if they walk into their room and they drop their shirt on the floor, she's immediately, nope, pick that up. You know where that goes. It goes in the basket. And within about 3 days, they never ever drop anything on the floor. Like everything stays clean, because their brain has sort of inserted a mirror of my mother, and so they know what will happen, and so their brain sort of automatic. Over time, you then internalize that to such a degree that becomes something that you morally believe you should do, and you, instinctively, like you don't even think about it. In fact, I had a professor once tell me that he was teaching Dante. He said if you drop a piece of litter on the floor and you walk away and you don't pick it up, you've just experienced a tiny piece of hell. Because hell is not caring about other people. For Dante, that's what it is.
Okay.
So ultimately, at its kernel. So yeah, so you internalize those things, yeah, because you internalize the intentionality of the people, who have had authority over you when you were young. And so your moral system will be shaped by whatever it is they taught you, even if, of course you'll evolve and you'll be a different person, you'll be your own person, but a lot of what your parents believe or other influential people in your life, maybe it was a grandparent or maybe it was, a significant father figure, a really good teacher, someone like that. But those are all, in a way, they sort of all live inside of you. That's what the superego is.
Okay. All right. So, that wasn't completely far off. Okay. So
Yeah,
then
no,
let's.
I think you had it right. Yeah.
All right. So then let's go back to
Hey,
let's
you
go
know what?
back
I'm
to
gonna
thought.
grab a
What?
soda real quick. I'm
Oh,
gonna be right back. Just like
for sure.
two minutes.
No problem. And to everyone else who's here, hi. Thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping by. We're just talking to my friend Aiko here. Good guy. It's a debate coach teacher. So if you came in before and he was talking about that and you were like a little confused, that's why. Um, so yeah, and I'm just playing this game. I've questioned some side missions. I think I go down. I do the. Oh, that one's close. All right, let's. Now they're both kind of far. Let's do this one. That'll be our next one. Hello, B. Dander. Great conversation. Glad to be here. Hey, thanks for being here, B. Dander. Nice to have you. We're having a fantastic night. And anyone else who's joining us here as well. Yeah, I am slightly earlier than I usually am. One day I will start this at a reasonable fucking time. So, one day. Oh man, it's a long way. I gotta follow the coast, don't I? Yeah, I'm enjoying the conversation. I generally enjoy my conversations with Aiko. He's
All right, I'm back.
partner of me. I was saying nice things about you. They were all lies, though.
Hold on. Something's happening. I don't know what happened here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hold on, I can't hear you for some reason.
Scoot up. I am not a good position. Now, 1 second. Okay. On. As soon as I handle these guys, I will be right back with you because I want to ask about the thing. God thing. I'm gonna die. I am definitely gonna die.
Hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Something, I don't know why, I lost my audio for a minute.
Give me 1 second. Gotta ruin this guy's. Fuck! Flashbangs. Oh, they suck. Alright. Okay, so I managed to survive that somehow. So yeah, we were talking about you related the superego to God.
Right.
And you had said that like, well, you don't have to throw away the teachings of your religion because that religion it ties in, right? Like you're saying there's
Oh
a
yeah,
path
but I was
there.
saying the opposite. I was saying you don't have
Okay.
to throw away science
Okay.
in order to stay in your religion or whatever.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Unless you're a fundamentalist, then it's kind of hard.
Yeah. But I guess I'm talking about that conflict. But
Right.
you... Hold on, is there a path? Not a path here. I think that God, what you had said about God being like an extension of the superego, and like this is like you're basically relating this to like how God was like formed, right? And what you can expect those, I guess, primitive people, quote unquote.
Right. The
to have
evolution.
understood.
Right. The evolution of the religious mindset. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but like, how does that lead to like truth?
Well, so there's different kinds of truth, right? You have scientific truth, but then you also have moral truth.
Uh-huh.
And damn it, I'm gonna have to remember the name of that. There's an evolutionary biologist who came up with the concept of non-overlapping magisteria.
Okay.
Stephen Jay Gould. And he said basically that science has its authority of things that it talks about, and that religion has its own authority. And that science really talks about discrete facts and how the universe works, and how the physical world works, and all these other sort of branches of science. And then religion is really about moral philosophy, like what does it mean to be good? Because if you believe in a God that's beneficent, right, and all-knowing and all-powerful and all of that stuff, but especially all good,
Okay.
then in order to know God, you really what that really is a study of what is good. Right, how to be moral, because what God wants you, because obeying God and being moral are essentially synonymous. So if you're studying God, you're really studying morality. And so what Stephen Jay Gould argued was that religion, was in that sphere. Now, I don't think religion's the only thing that addresses that. Philosophy also addresses that. And so you can not be a member of any religion and just study philosophy and also get that same sort of like you're still interested in morality and exploring what it means to be good. But religion is another way that we do that, and it's an older way because that thunderstrike happened way like could have been 10,000 years ago. I don't know however long it was, and the development of the human brain sort of like utterly shifted at that point. So if you look at that thunderstrike as, remember I told you about 2001 about do you remember the opening to 2001? I remember explaining it to you, but I don't know if you saw the movie.
I never saw. Oh, I only seen pieces of that movie, so I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing.
You saw the thing with the monolith and the
The monolith and
apes.
the apes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that monolith sort of symbolizes, because that tool use happens after they encounter the monolith. So you might say that that's kind of their thunderclap, right? Or the Garden of Eden when he eats the apple or whatever, the forbidden fruit. That's the thunderclap moment in Genesis. So in a lot of these mythologies, like humans like gain this ability, or there's a point at which like man is shaped out of clay or something like that in other myths, or when Prometheus brings the fire down, we gain a certain kind of forbidden knowledge. But these are all sort of alluding to the same sort of event in human consciousness and development. And there's this concept called the runaway brain that says once we started making our environment more and more complicated, that caused the human brain to evolve at a faster and faster rate. So instead of taking, millions of years to evolve intelligence, we did it in a few thousand years. And so religion might be one of the ways in which we complicated our brain, because we were answering, we were asking complicated questions and trying to provide complicated answers.
I'm not willing to say that much.
I mean, just read the Torahs. Like go find a rabbi, and have them just show you the rows and rows of books that they're having to study, and all the complicated laws that they have to get around because they're inconvenient and you can't really live in a society obeying all of those laws. So you've got to create all of these like complicated rules within the rules within. You know about Orthodox Judaism and how that happens. And that's very complicated. And when the brain has to ponder anything complicated, it's going to develop.
Yeah, but I don't think that religion, at least the way you phrased it, is something that I can't. Like, people are contemplating these things, and they use religion as a framework to do so.
Yeah.
But without that framework of this position, you could still contemplate all the same things, correct?
Yeah, we can, and a lot of societies did. But I would argue that I don't think that's the way it was at the beginning. I think we developed religion before we developed a complex secular philosophical system. Well, certainly we had both by the time of ancient Greece, 2,500 years ago or whatever. We had Aristotle and Plato, and we had Heraclitus and all these ancient philosophers that were not particularly religious, but still contemplated these deep thoughts. But I think that the religious impulse is much, much older.
Yeah, no, I can admit that it's older, but I don't like.
So it might have been the bridge that led us to all these other ways of thinking.
That's where I can't sign on.
I mean, I'm open to other bridges that you think might have developed earlier and had that same effect.
I'm saying that we would have had that anyway. Like, that's just the framework, but we had that capacity to do the same thing. We didn't need religion to do all that. Like, I'm not sure if I'm being clear about like the difference that I'm drawing from.
Well, this is why I said philosophy is a substitute for religion, because you're still contemplating morality when it comes to philosophy. So you could say that's an alternative track. I'm not interested in like making religion appear to be the superior route. I don't think that. I just think that's a valid. And Jackson Chat, he might have this. He's a pagan. He might have a similar experience to that.
Jackson Chat.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Jack? Yeah, you do. Jakandar?
Oh, Jack in chat. Okay, all right.
Oh yeah, no, not Jack in chat. Yeah, just Jack is in chat.
Okay, all right, cool. So my issue.
I'm just saying he has a different pathway, right? Because as a pagan, he's thinking of it in terms of other religions, but still in a religious context.
Yeah. So it's your framing of it, right? I can accept that us as a people contemplating difficult questions can help us grow and I don't know, evolve or whatever, right? Like however you want to phrase that. I can accept the growth comes from that adversity of thinking of these issues. But to say that religion was the path to do so is the problem. People would have already had, if people didn't ascribe supernatural origins to anything, right? But still contemplate, where did we come from? Like, why do the seasons change, right? It just didn't anthropomorphize anything. Then they could have still had that growth without, like, they could have still had the same amount of growth, right? As they tried to explore the world without doing any of that. So, like, I can say, like, the questions were the path to that growth, to that complexity, but not the framework of religion.
Right, but if we could have done it that way, then it stands to reason that we would have, because we've had many different societies evolve, and sort of rise and fall over the eons, and I just don't.
They have. I mean, they're like there was that
But I'm
society in
talking
South
about
America.
yeah, how far back are you talking?
No, I mean like recently. There's that society in South America where like anthropologists I know went and talked to them. Oh no, it was this one person. I think he wrote a book about it. He went and talked to them, and they just never had any superstitions. They
Yeah.
there were questions about the world they didn't understand, and they contemplated them all, but they just didn't come up with a god.
But then we have to ask, like, the societies that flourished to the point where they started developing technology and all this
Oh,
other
come
kind of
on.
stuff.
Come on.
Like,
You're comparing
What?
that to a so for my understanding of the story, and
Right.
let's assume that my details aren't incorrect, but this is a society that's like in a South American jungle that's
Yeah.
cut off from other societies with trade and all that, right? Like the reasons why those societies flourished, right? Like the societies of the Mediterranean flourished is because of the trade, being able to pass knowledge back and forth, right? Like to say that, well, they didn't flourish the way other societies did. Well, yeah, I mean they're
No. That's not where I was going with that.
okay.
You're responding to what I think you thought I was going to say.
Okay.
No, what I meant was that society wasn't able to sort of run the experiment long enough to have developed technology the way like early man did. And honestly, we don't know what because we're talking about prehistoric man, going way back. What was it that led to that technological advance? What sort of impulses like complicated our brains to the point where we can start doing things like trade, and especially using language and the written language and all of those sort of milestones? You wouldn't be able to tell by looking at that society because it hasn't been able to run that experiment in isolation for long enough. By the time it could have, it would contact other more advanced civilizations that have already run the experiment, and so it wouldn't really tell us anything. That's what I'm saying is, like, all I'm saying is it's a valid path. I'm not saying it's the only path, but it seems to be the path that we used to develop at least one of the major paths that we use to develop moral systems. Like the Code of Hammurabi, for instance. Laws against killing, and if you do kill, then the boogeyman's gonna get you, and you're gonna suffer in the afterlife or whatever it is.
Yeah. Eye for an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but eye for an eye is kind of a secular thing, but punishment in the afterlife is the religious one, and it's a powerful motivator. And it's, I think, to a large degree, even if you're totally secular, even if you're totally an atheist, you'll still, somewhere in your subconscious, you're going to think about, let's say your parents are long gone. Subconsciously, you're still going to be trying to please your parents, even though they're long gone. And there's not a lot of difference, I don't think, in the way the subconscious treats those parents and God. Like, they're the same. In fact, I heard somebody told me the other day that it was an Indian student of mine said, in India, parents are God. Like, parents are God. Like that's what parents are. And so that kind of like fits in with all of that superego stuff I was talking about. Well, it gets complicated and everything's connected.
Parents are okay. Well, I guess I can't comment on that, whether that's actually the case or anything. I don't know.
But don't you ever like find yourself like doing things that your parents would do?
Oh,
And you're like, oh, shit, I learned that from them.
well, yeah, of course, because they raised me. But like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay, I guess so. Just trying to like wrap this around.
Yeah.
Do you?
Jack says he what's in, by the way.
Oh, okay, sure. A little bit. Yeah. Jack, if you want in, you just hop into the waiting room. Um, I don't think that God. Uh, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. This is my issue. When it comes to Christianity, right? Like, why
Right.
choose Christianity then? You're saying that, like, okay, you accept that these people didn't have some sort of claim on truth because they were, yeah, the primitive understanding of the world, and this is the
Right.
best that they could do. Okay, all right. So you're obviously not a fundamentalist saying that, oh, this is
Yeah.
the one true word of God. Well, that's great, but
Yeah, I'm talking
beyond
about
that,
Vico's caveman here. This is like long before even Genesis, right? This is, the thunderclap and like the initial fear reaction and everything that comes from that. I think that like Genesis is actually has a lot of there's a lot in it that has advanced sort of moral thinking, at least in terms of if you look at ancient man and the way that he reacted prior to that. And over time, I think it gets better. And for me, it came from reading the Gospels. That's what convinced me to be a Catholic. I know I was raised Baptist, but I didn't understand the Gospels really when I was a Baptist.
um,
But I have to admit, like Christianity is also what I was raised in, and I live in a culture where Christianity is dominant. If I had been raised in China, I might have, well, in pre-communist China, I might have been a Buddhist, or Japan or Shinto, or
yeah.
whatever. And I think those are valid. I'm not saying everyone has to be a Christian.
No,
Like that's not,
I'm
yeah,
not saying that you are saying that.
right.
I'm
But if you're
saying
asking me why I
I
picked it, part of
yeah,
it is that I'm culturally determined, but
yeah.
also the profundity of the Gospels is what persuaded me. Like both of those things are true. I have a bias, and I also like to think that I thought about it, right?
Hmm. It sounds like that bias is so strong as
Uh
to
huh.
like I. It's the
Right.
fact that like it's so rare. It's so incredibly rare for people
Right.
to not be the religion of their parents, right? So it's hard
Right.
for me to, even though I trust that you are a deep thinker, right? Like I don't question that.
Sure.
It's hard for me to believe that you have overcome this bias and have, um, like your other contemplations have
I
led you
haven't
to.
overcome the bias.
Okay,
I'm saying the bias is in the mix.
okay,
But if
yeah,
there was something, but if the Gospels didn't strike me as profoundly true, like if I ran into some deep moral contradictions, not this bullshit, how many animals can fit on an art stuff. I'm talking about like if there was something fundamentally unjust about the Golden Rule, for example, or the Sermon on the Mount, or the Beatitudes, that were like fundamentally unworkable, then I would have to leave. In fact, I did when I was the bias that I grew up with was being a Southern Baptist. And I ultimately had to reject it. And lots of people have rejected the religion they grew up with and walked away, right? And just in my case, I found Catholicism. But could easily have just been an atheist the rest of my life.
okay. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I'm saying is I was persuaded by the Gospels ultimately.
And you said so anything that's fundamentally that you can't reconcile, right? Fundamentally
Uh huh.
unreconcilable. It's something that would lead you away. All right. Um then
Yeah. So you're talking about the metaphor stuff, right?
no, I'm talking about the
Okay.
slavery.
Oh, right. Well, that's the context of the people that lived in that time too. So Paul, first of all, I have big problems with Paul. He's also pretty misogynistic. And let me put it this way: that was just a letter that he wrote to the Corinthians because they had a problem
Uh-huh.
because a lot of the Christians were slaves. Like that was that was the thing. Like that's a running theme within Christianity is being in bondage. It goes all the way back to the Jews, and Moses escaping from Egypt and all of that. And so slaves sort of flocked to Christianity after Jesus. And so he had to give advice to like on how to survive. And again, these are not chattel slaves, right? These are more people who are that they're owed a debt. They owe a debt and they're paying it off with their servitude, and they're slaves in that sense. So that's as Fanatic would point out, that's not the same as the slavery that we learned about in the textbooks in North America. And when he said that, there was a particular slave that he had in mind that he was giving advice to, and he just said, "Look, do your job and obey your master, and also your master has to be kind to you, or whatever." But it really hits differently to Americans who've studied about chattel slavery for the longest time and who know that those verses were used to justify chattel slavery throughout the 19th century, and it was horrible.
I mean,
But
hell,
it's
technically
not
the
the
final
same. You
slave
have to separate that out. It's not the same context.
So I wasn't thinking about Paul. I was thinking about in the Old Testament, where God gives his chosen people explicit instructions on how to own and treat their slaves.
That's
and
easier.
And that he can rape them. So
that's easier.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's easier. The answer that any Christian will give you is that's Old Testament, and that's not.
And that's
not what's valid in the gospel.
No, it's not bullshit. Yes, it is.
It's a bullshit answer the way that it's normally.
No. This is a part that I fucking hate so much, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the Old Testament. I mean, it's part of the Bible. It forms the basis of a religion, right? All of that stuff, right? But yeah, we that part we just ignore, right? Like that part, I guess it didn't come on from on high, right?
No, we don't. We don't ignore it. We have to look at it. But let's say you're talking about the Constitution, right?
Okay.
What's the Constitution that? What's the amendment that banned alcohol? Which one was that?
20th or 21st, I forget.
Constitution Amendment. So let me look it up. It's the 18th Amendment.
18th.
It's the 18th Amendment. If you were to look and say your Constitution is bullshit because the 18th Amendment prohibits liquor, but the 21st Amendment repeals the 18th Amendment.
Yeah.
So is the Constitution still bullshit on that account?
No, here's my answer to you. The Constitution has allows for slavery. The Constitution allows for enslaving humans.
Yeah.
Right? And something that's carried on to the future. And then I think the 14th or 13th Amendment.
The 14th, yeah.
14th, excuse me.
I know which one you're thinking of. Yeah, it allows slavery for prisoners.
I wasn't going to go there, but like
okay.
Just that like the slavery was repealed.
I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
13th. That's the 13th. Yeah.
Yeah, the 13th. Yeah. So I don't ignore the fact that it was in there originally. That is right. It's a valid argument talking about the validity of the Constitution, the idea when Americans talk about how like their Constitution values democracy as if it's something special, as if it has a special claim onto the system, and then you look at the Constitution and see how much it actually doesn't value democracy. How much the founders didn't trust the people. So looking at that, right? Like, and you can say, well, it's evolved since then. That's true. But like the basis is the basis. And if I can't acknowledge that, if I can't say that this is a thing that happened and it is a valid criticism, like I don't get to say, and at least I don't think any of us can get to say, is that, well, that just doesn't count anymore. We can ignore that history or whatever. No, hold
on. Those are two different claims.
Okay.
That doesn't matter anymore. And wait, no. What did you say? That doesn't matter anymore. And what did you say before? Now,
I don't remember what I said. That doesn't matter anymore. And,
or it doesn't count. It doesn't count anymore, and we can ignore it. No, we can't ignore it. But it is true that it doesn't count anymore. And in fact, it never counted. Like it was always wrong. It was wrong then when it was done. But remember what I told you about progressive revelation. The idea is you have a kernel of the thought of God in your mind when you're first writing scripture. and you're gonna get a lot of shit wrong because our moral system wasn't very well built up at that point, and it builds up over time. And if you believe in progressive revelation, which is what I subscribe to, then it culminates in the Gospels. So you're going to see a lot of shit that that might be profound in the Old Testament, and there's a lot that's profound in the Old Testament because these are deep thinkers, like expressing deep thoughts. But then there's also a lot of bullshit in there because there's a lot of political people who got a hold of these scriptures, especially once they became important, like for their tribes and stuff like that, who are putting their bullshit in there too. But we believe that over time, tradition throws out the worst and keeps the best. And so that's why I'm not saying that God, you would never, if you believe in progressive revelation, you don't believe that God speaks these perfect words to like the authors of Genesis and they're flawlessly written down. And Muslims attack Christianity all the time on the basis that we don't believe that every single line is perfect, or at least progressive revelation people don't. And instead, we believe that it's an imperfect document where our thinking gets better and better over time. And so, our belief isn't necessarily that every piece of the Bible is inerrant. Our belief as Catholics is that in the context of the whole, it's inerrant. And so, the context of the whole is that everything in tradition leads to the Gospels. It's not that God thought this back then and then he changed when Jesus was born and suddenly we have a new moral philosophy. It's that the mind of man is always playing catch up to God.
The mind of man?
The mind of man. Yeah.
Sorry, okay. What is the Bible? What is this supposed to be? If it's not a lessons taught to us by God, if it's not that, then what the fuck?
No, it is, but it's kind of backwards because through deep contemplation, we're trying to know the mind of God, and over time, progressive revelation says we get better at it because like the scripture that we write gets closer and closer to God's intent until it achieves the Gospels. Like that's the culmination of it. But then you have 2,000 years of Catholic tradition after that, whatever.
And then,
But
hold on.
what's that saying, Jack? I think man's reach should exceed his grasp.
But not his
what's
sight.
a heaven for?
Yes, but not his sight or what's heaven for. Yes, correct.
Yeah, so a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? That's the idea. The gospel or whatever, the Bible, the people who are writing and there's hundreds of people writing different parts of the Bible all the time. Mm-hmm. And they're all sort of grasping, or at least collectively, they're sort of grasping for the mind of God. They're developing that superego.
Well, but okay. Here's my thing, Aiko, because I had to look this one up because I've heard that term my whole life. Because my dad
Which one?
used to say progressive revelation. I've heard that term my whole goddamn life. So I actually had to go look it up. It didn't exist until 1797.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's correct.
And it was created by a chauvinist who was specifically trying to get around wedding laws.
Actually, I'm citing a much newer tradition. Early 20th century. What did they call themselves? They were mainline Protestants. Hold on a second. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, this guy is Charles Hodge. He's a Presbyterian, and it cites later Protestants, that base their work on him. But my thing is this: if it was based on, I mean, this goes to almost my issue with the King James version of the Bible. It was written for political means. It was edited for political means.
Yep.
This document is screaming to his own politics more than his own religion. And that's why I wonder. It's like, other people may have found kernels of truth in it, but the foundation in and of itself is kind of.
Well, religion is political. It always has been.
Not arguing that, but it's slight difference in how it's political. It is used as a political tool and has been used as a political platform, but it has not always been used as a political influence. That has been dramatically
I
a
would argue
roller
that it
coaster, up and
has.
down. No, up and down throughout history, it changes.
But I
I'm
mean,
not
you know what
saying
the
it's one
you
way
know
or
what
the other throughout at any one
as a
point.
former Catholic, you know what the church militant is, right?
Yes.
And the cross swords that the Pope has. The one sword is like the sword of spiritualism, and the other one is politics.
Yep.
That the that's a long tradition. It goes all the way back to at least
14.
Constantine. At the very least, it goes back to Constantine.
Yeah, but it was separated out for a time, because if you remember, it wasn't until,
That was
what was
always
it,
an illusion.
Alexander
That was always a myth.
Sextus?
Yeah. Listen, I believe
Okay,
in.
okay. I may give you it's a myth because of I may be misremembering certain points in history. I'll give you that, but it wasn't until Alexander Sextus became pope that it became prominent that they were the political arm again, and that was why Savonarola was anti-Borgian pope.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Justinian because, like, he. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this isn't a positive history. Like, but he enforces Christianity politically on all of Rome, and he that's when the suppression of you heathens started happening. Constantine was actually pretty tolerant, but Justinian is the one who started.
Well, because
cracking down on
Constantine
it.
was a lifelong pagan. I mean,
Yeah, right.
he was one of us. He literally
Yeah.
converted to save the empire.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. And his son was more of a zealot. But my point is, like, religion has always, like, had a political influence, even when it tries not to.
Oh yeah, that's why I
I'm
said it's a
huge
roller
secularist.
coaster.
Like, I absolutely believe in the separation of church and state. But separation of church and state simply means that the government shouldn't be imposing religion on anybody. It doesn't constrain the church at all. The church itself, we've got souls to the polls, which is, basically how we won the Senate. And we've got Pope Francis, who's primarily arguing for the rights of immigrants to move freely from country to country, the preferential option for the poor. There's a lot of, like, sort of political programs that are being led by this Pope. And so,
Yeah, but I'd argue that while this Pope is doing it right, and the previous one did it right as well, despite the fact that he was hated by so many.
yeah, I mean, I would say that philosophically, the most recent three popes are on the same page, but they're on different pages in terms of where their priorities are. Like, like
I was gonna
Francis,
say,
like, puts abortion sort of in the back seat. I mean, he's not.
Well, I was just giving they you're right, they've modernized, but we have 540 years of extreme religious oppression within government.
Yeah,
and it's roller coastered up and down where the Catholic Church sat on it, and that's why I bring up the roller coaster, because depending on what grouping of popes, depending on how political they were, and that's why I said it wasn't.
That's why Dante puts popes in hell. He puts three popes in hell.
But my point, but my point in this was, we can argue that it has been a net negative, not a net positive, even with the most recent three turning the corner. So why would we want to remove religion from politics? Not the politicians. They can still be religious, but from their political speeches and their charged rhetoric.
I believe that. I wouldn't give a religion. Well, no, I take that back. Like, when I look at Martin Luther King, or when I look at who's that guy that just died? The guy that on the the Pettus Bridge and all that. John.
Yeah. Crap.
Can't remember. Well, anyway, and even today we've got a senator, Raphael Warnock. I've got the shirt in my closet. I wear it on stream sometimes. The vote is sacred. Like, the point is, you can abandon religion, in which case the church gets inherited by all of the worst actors in the world.
No. We went over that. I wasn't saying abandon the religion. I'm just saying remove it from the political speeches, because overall I've seen it as a negative. Yeah. I've yet to see a positive evangelical or even diehard true Catholic that ran on a Catholic platform that really
Well, I mean,
was
Martin
what
Luther
they
King
said they
ran
were.
on a Baptist platform because he was a Baptist. I would say that
Yeah,
that
but not.
Warnock is himself a preacher, and he preached a lot in his campaigning. He talks about the importance of his faith. And here's the thing: if in politics, the only religious messages are coming from the far right, then in the public mind, in the voters' mind, in the electoral sense, they get all of that. They get all of that sort of sway behind them. And I just think it's a big mistake. Look, I believe in secularism, but secularism doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means.
No,
Secularism
I think
doesn't
it
mean
should
that you
be
shut,
taken
that,
further.
that
Not
the
that it
churches
was
shut
meant
up
to be
politically.
taken. Not. I think it should be taken further. Not that it was meant to be. I think that's where the misunderstanding comes in. I don't think it is this way. I think it should be this way because I think this is what overall they intended. Because I don't think they ever expected religion to, quite frankly, become what it has become. It's a mutation of anything they would have thought about 250 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
Well,
even when you factor in the fanatics of the time period, they are
I don't
the
know,
religion of
300
today.
years, 300 years of religious wars in Europe, like, it black pilled a lot of the founders on.
Oh, no argument, but I'm saying religion, even during that time period, it's unrecognizable to the ridiculous fanaticisms we get today. Back then, kings could send you to war far easier than a president can now.
I don't know.
It was a different. It was a different, economic system, different governmental
Surely
system.
you've read the Jonathan Edwards, and the other Puritans,
Mm-hmm.
sermons from
Yeah,
250
but
years ago. They
I'm
were
also
every bit as
remember,
bad.
but the implications of the conflict between the denominations were not. Yeah, they would talk about the churches, they would talk about the followers, but it wasn't affecting the government on the scale that it is today. It was very much the churches fighting amongst themselves, the people fighting amongst themselves. The king was not. Oh, somebody must have walked in. Okay. Oh, I think somebody walked in his room, Brian.
Okay, so we're just waiting.
Yeah, but going back to what he was kind of bringing me in for about the pagan thing, to a point, certain pagan faiths, the gods were explanation of supernatural origin for these things, but we were still searching in the pagan faiths for these answers. It's why pagan faiths, predominantly the ones I studied more, were the Celtic faiths of my heritage. We were one of the first within Europe to, practice herbology. We were one of the first to practice astrology, or astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, to the point where we actually designed Stonehenge around the movement of the stars, etc. Pagans were what I believe modern Christian scientists are. The ones who believe science is a language of God. I think pagans honestly believe their exploration of the natural world was learning the language of the gods. And that's why we had a different outlook and a different overall acceptance of science than Christianity did, because we never had the dark times, the dark ages that they had of being suppressed by the church, because we aren't organized in the same way. We only organize on high feast days, and that's pretty much it. Like, other than that, it's you and depending on what faith you're in, a cub in a circle, pick your name, doesn't really matter. And then it's community based, but actually like meeting together as a big group like 3-4 times a year. That's it. The rest of the time we did not practice together. So the organization of the faith, I think, is what led to the issues you have with the Christian faith specifically, Brian. Whereas the pagan faiths, we were more insular. We definitely, even amongst ourselves, kept to ourselves, and we didn't write things down. So we were very careful about our oral tradition. Like, the very few times pagan stories have been written down, like Goody Alsop being written about in the 18 or 1700s. Some of the stories she told being written down by historians could be verbatim retold by kids that had never even heard of Goody Alsop written in a book. Because we're that careful of saying the same exact stories the same exact ways. It's almost like a play. We even get to the point where we say the emphasis on the same points and move our hands in the same way. It's a performance to tell the story. So that's another difference between us and Christianity, whereas a lot of it was steeped in dogmatic tradition that wasn't even explained in the Bible. It was created specifically by the church. And Aiko can point that out too. He'll remember which ones are in the book and which one aren't better than I do.
I have.
Yeah, I know that took us a little further afield from the question that you asked.
Yeah.
I kind of brought us back.
Well, you guys continue your conversation. I'll because I wanted to talk about something different. That's okay. You guys.
Oh no!
Tell me what
it's
it
your
is,
stream,
'cause I
dude.
think-
We're your guests.
It's fine. Oh, it's fine.
Well, no, I think
and
we've come. I think we've come to an end on that one.
Yeah, because honestly, it's one of those things where we're getting to the point of arguing minutia about religion, and all three of us here accept that religion has overall caused far more problems than we care to accept.
Hey, Brento Box. Thanks for stopping by, buddy.
Hey, how's it going, Brento?
Hey, how's it going? I'm fixing my audio really quick. 1 second.
Okay, sure. Well, give me a second. I gotta. Fucking hell! Hold on. Let me restart from the.
There we go.
Hey, Brento Box. Did you have something you want to add to this?
I like the conversation a lot. Yeah, it seems like it came to you guys to a good point. I would probably like to have something. Nothing currently on my mind. I'll sit and listen too, but I'd like to chime in sometime if I hear something. It's a good conversation.
Actually, you have a different perspective from the both of us too, I suspect.
Yeah, what's your denomination? Just out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking.
I guess I'm not sure. I would say I'm an ex-Catholic, but I'm a kind of like I guess I'll say an ex-Catholic returned Christian. So I'm Christian, and I decided to become a Christian again as I got older. But I don't really go to church or practice or anything like that. But.
Nah, I mean, I'm technically a Reformed Catholic turned pagan, so
Cool.
yeah, we have an active Catholic in here as well. So we all have that logical background, which is why, thankfully, you are one of the few who, when they go into religion, you don't fall into the logical fallacies that so many others do, because you have that same thought process that we do.
Yeah, because they're impossible to defend.
Yeah, it really is.
They don't make any sense.
As kids, we were taught not to defend it because of our understanding of the modern world and our understanding of the Gospels, etc.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think there's a lot of things. People are like, "Well, you're running away from it." It's like, well, I mean, maybe. Like, I'm running away from something I can't say that if I can't defend it, then I won't defend it, right? But if it's in the Bible, and they're like, well, then there's something wrong with the Bible. It's like, well, yeah, maybe, but there's also, I don't know, there's different meanings to things.
Mm-hmm. See, I always looked at the Bible, especially after I left the faith. I always looked at the Bible as a collection of really good stories that could teach us a lot of good things that also had a lot of horrible shit in it.
Yeah. It's kind of a record of humanity. It's
at least for that time period, yeah.
Yeah, it's a record of humanity. It's a record of how things were and how people acted and treated each other, and so
or at least how the victors perceived those realities, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, correct, right. So,
I think this is kind of circling back around to where I wanted to go with this originally. And it's like to Aiko. Aiko, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So, what do you think the Bible is? And other people can jump in on this later on. I want to get to Aiko first, but like, what do you think the Bible is? Is the Bible I know you're not a fundamentalist. You don't think this is like the exact word of God, so I get that. But like, uh, is it is there no is it not at all divinely inspired? Like, what are
Okay.
like the stories of the Torah?
Here's what I'm trying to get
Go ahead.
at. If you think of the authors of the Bible as trying to intuit a divine truth, in that sense, it's divinely inspired, right? Because if you, how well do you know like Plato and Aristotle as as philosophers? Just on a really basic level.
Yeah, I mean on a very basic level. But
Okay,
like,
so you know Plato believed in the forms, right? And he believed that like if you're gonna, if there's an idea of a pen, right? And we define a pen as a thing that writes, on paper or something like that. He would argue that there's something called the form of a pen, and that every pen that gets crafted, that gets made, is like sort of derives its penness, you would say, from this idea of a pen, like this divine sort of that pre-exists any given particular pen.
This sounds
You
familiar.
have this idea of a pen. All right, so that's Aristotle. That's why in the famous painting, you know what I'm talking about, the one where Aristotle's pointing up and Plato's pointing up and Aristotle's pointing out. Have you seen that painting? School of Athens, it's called. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, it's just a famous painting, and the reason why Aristotle's pointing up or Plato is pointing up, is because he's pointing to the forms, and so all particular things come from these sort of heavenly forms, right? Aristotle says no, it's the other way around. Like we intuit these things that Plato calls forms because we created a pen and we created another pen and then we created another pen and then we start sort of eventually use inductive reasoning to come up with the idea of what a pen is, right? And so those are two different ways of looking at it. And a lot of people look at the Bible in a Platonic way, where God speaks his word and man writes it down and that, it's perfect and it goes on. But I don't believe that. Progressive Revelation doesn't think that. We think more like Aristotle, whereas you write scripture and it gets edited and it gets cut and pasted all around. Which is how canon develops, and those sort of deep intuitions of what we think God wants sort of get closer and closer to what God actually wants. And that's
how do you know this is closer to what God actually wants? So the Gospels. How do you know that's closer?
Yeah, to some degree it's faith, but also it's because I read the Gospels and I was persuaded by the Gospels of its moral reasoning. Like that's the moral world that I believe in, and to this day, like the moral system that I learned as a Catholic makes more sense to me than any other moral system that I've sort of encountered.
Why not the other way around though? Why not that the Gospels are a corruption of what he wanted? That like got it right the first time in the Torah, and slavery is a good thing.
Well,
I
don't. Except for the slavery is a good thing part. Jews would say that. Jews would say that no, the truth is in the Torah, and they'll have ways of explaining away a lot of the other stuff, and I don't really know what the Jewish explanation for that is. There might be a form of progressive revelation.
Oh, there's even Christian faiths who follow the laws of Leviticus and Deuteronomy on diet and all that stuff that actually hold the Old Testament to be just as valid. So it's not just the Jews. So it is interesting to see why they hold to it, because I don't understand it when I'd say 75% of Christian faiths don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
and I'm saying denominations as a whole, not their actual.
No, I would say it's a way bigger number than that, because you've got mainline Protestants who, for the most part,
that's why I'm saying number of denominations as a whole, not number of followers as a whole.
Yeah, but number of followers is the key here, right? Because
agreed, but that's what I'm saying. 25% of these faiths hold on to that older one. Why is their interpretation of that Bible any less valid?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm still Catholic too, is because after the Protestant Revolution, you get these like splinter groups, and like one group splinters into the next, to the next, to the next, and then you have thousands of denominations, and now you have something called non-denominational churches, which is the ultimate like infinity splitting, like where every individual church is its own denomination essentially, and then you can't have a theological like sort of. There's this thing called the Great Conversation, which is all of the books talking to each other, and within Christian tradition, you have a great conversation, and within the Catholic strand, you have a great conversation. And I have an issue with after all this splitting up occurs, everyone sort of is sort of on their own team, and they're shouting at each other, and that great conversation sort of gets impeded, I think.
Right.
But anyway, my answer to you, Prime, is it's because I think that I'm a bit of a Hegelian here. I believe that as we ponder these things, our sense of morality develops and improves. Martin Luther King said the same thing, right? When he said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That's progressive revelation.
Okay, I don't know. Well, maybe that's the basis of what he meant, and that part's lost to history. But
Well, I don't think that's lost to history. That's a pretty well-established theological paradigm.
oh, okay. Well, look, I'll just take your word on it.
Okay.
But it like there is no reason to believe that this is a more perfect work, the Gospels, than anything else that allows you to simply ignore all the things that all the things that were written before, and they
So
say,
you don't think the Gospels are any better than Leviticus?
and you're asking me if what I don't
Yeah.
think?
I mean, that's what you just said.
No, I am. Well, first of all, I think they're all crap. But like,
Right? Yeah.
No. But like, I can recognize that one is like, they are the substance of crap, but they don't. One is more finer crap. You know, like
Okay.
The
So to put it in
proverbial
your
one's a shit
language-
sandwich, one's a shit sandwich on a premium bun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think a deeper reading of the Gospels might persuade you. I'm not saying it would persuade you to convert or anything crazy like that. I'm just saying a deeper reading of the Gospels might persuade you that there's some philosophical merit in the ideas in there. And I think that would be true of studying Buddhism or Shintoism or any other like major religion.
I admit that they have some philosophical value, right? But like surrounded and entrenched in the superstition that they come with, then it ruins them. And it's literally no point. Every lesson that you can learn in the gospel, you can learn through other philosophies that aren't rooted in superstition. You can just do that, or we can just come up with a philosophy that accomplishes all the same goals without any of the superstition, any of the noxious part of Christianity. That's what I mean.
Those philosophies exist and they're successful. I mean, I would never argue against those.
I'm not saying, but yeah, because look, because the conversation keeps shifting away from what I'm trying to get at, though.
Okay.
So bringing it back.
Yep.
That when we're talking about that, like when we're talking about the Bible, to be able to ignore a part of it, right, and to say
Right.
that okay, there's some sort of a progressive a change here. We're better understanding God than before, right? Rather than saying, okay, this is a full document. It has the good and the bad, and then we're just going to have to defend the bad here, right? Like I think it's just
No,
it's very,
you don't defend the bad. You
or-
run away from the bad, just like Brento was saying. Like you recognize that a particular author, like for instance, the example I gave you, I think in an earlier
but
stream
you're
about
just saying that the author was wrong.
yes.
But
I'm saying that
I don't
some
know,
of it is-
But I don't see how you get to call that. You just get to call that this author was wrong, and this other one, conveniently, that I like better.
You
was
listen
right.
to the words. No, you listen to the words and you judge by your reason and your your heart and like your understanding.
I think his point is at that point you're picking philosophy, not religion. Is the issue
Sure.
because you're separating them into two separate categories, yet calling them the same thing.
But they're not the same thing, but they are highly overlapping, and it's impossible to separate them.
カッパの仕業です。
That doesn't mean they're the same thing, right? In the Venn diagram, it's like, it's not the same circle, but they are highly overlapping.
こんなひどいこと人には
So, again, you're just, it's so,
But you're-
like,
It seems like you're saying that once you're in a religion, you can't use your reason to like determine and interpret a framework for the stuff that you're reading. But you do that, like you do that as a non-Christian. You can read it critically, and you can say, well, this part is good and this part is bad, and here's why, and everything else. But Christians can do the same thing too. It's just that fundamentalism has sort of trained us to believe that every line of scripture taken out of context has to itself by itself be infallible, and you can't question it.
I'm
And
not
I just
saying
don't
that's
believe that.
I'm not saying that's even infallible. I'm saying that this is a reflection of a god, right? A reflection of a philosophy that's built up. Like, okay, if you want to say that none of it was divinely inspired and that you're taking the Gospels,
No, I'm not
and
saying that.
I know you're not saying that because conveniently the Gospels are very much divinely inspired and closer to what God wanted to have, right? And the Torah, I guess, not so much. But like, if you wanted to say that,
The Torah is the ladder that gets us to the Gospels, and so it's important for that reason.
Yeah, and important, and just important enough for us to go on to the promised land of the Gospels, but not important enough for us to examine the Torah and to say that, hey, this might be signs that our God is evil. That is corrupt.
But I examine the Torah. I point out all of this shit all the time.
But you said before that I don't know. Sorry, I don't know your exact words. So I don't want to put those words in your mouth. But like something along the lines of that we can move past it. That's the Torah, and now we have progressively, but we can't move past that.
That's not the same. That's not the same as ignoring it. What I'm saying is you put that in the context of the time in which it was written, and you say, morally, there were things that the authors understood about morality that we think are correct, and those are the aspects of God that they sort of grasped in their scripture, and then here's where they failed to grasp God,
but that's convenient. You have no evidence that this is so look.
We do. We have human reason.
This is your what you're doing is trying to find a path to arrive at a conclusion that you've already arrived at. There's a term for that, I know, but whatever. But like
begging the question.
Sure. That you have a God that you want to believe is good and moral, right? Okay. So then, what parts of the Bible are good and moral? Well, the Gospels, you've decided, are good and moral, and this is what a good moral God would do. But then you have these other parts, and you're saying, well, I guess at the time they didn't actually really understand God, and so there's a lot of errors here, human errors. But
their understanding, it's not to say they didn't understand God at all. It's that their understanding of God was preliminary. If it was a perfect understanding of God, then there wouldn't have been the next book. Like Scripture would end.
Why
the very fact that it continues means that it's incomplete.
Or it could be that people just added on. They just added on a story. There, and then of course, and let's not forget there's the other parts of the gospel that are not even canon because they just weren't included, and that say all kinds of things about Jesus Christ and how he operated as a child, and that this kid was practically a fucking demon himself, right? Like those parts weren't included because those parts were inconvenient, right? And if those parts were included, then you'd be explaining that to me, saying, oh well, okay, we'll see. Jesus, I guess he wasn't so perfect. But like, he progressively understood his godhood later on in life. Like it's
or he progressively revealed his. I mean, and that's a complicated story, but yeah, it's true that as the story develops, like the message that like Jesus doesn't I don't think Jesus ever proclaims himself as God. Actually, he gets
No, he says, "I and the Father are one," but he doesn't say that he is God. That he
Right.
is like the God. He says he's always talking about God. He says God.
Yeah.
He's like
I'm
obey God.
talking about the non-canon stories.
You're talking about the thing about like him turning a kid into a tree or some shit.
There's lots of stuff where he does like really cool things. He does
Yeah,
like
there's
super
some
cool things.
yeah.
Yeah,
The mythology of the
there's several
Deuterocanon
books
is
that are removed.
yeah, and there's the Deuterocanon, and then there's Apocrypha, and then there's the stuff that's absolutely outside of all canon.
yeah.
And yeah, that was determined by various church councils, and a lot of it had to do really with this is
Politics.
where my Hegelian sort of bias comes in, because all of the politics was part of it, but also the popularity of the book. If there was a book that was floating around that everybody knew and everybody read, it generally made it into canon, and stuff that like didn't circulate and didn't like resonate with people didn't make it into canon. If there were big obvious contradictions, then it was excluded from canon. Like there were a lot of criteria that the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Sanhedrin and a bunch of other councils sort of had to come together and debate and argue this stuff. And of course, I believe in debate. So to me, like that's a
Well,
good
but here's my
process.
thing. Now that we understand this, that
Yeah.
these are removed for political reasons, popularity reasons, would
Yes.
you not then accept
And
that
for logical consistency reasons.
if we are going to,
Well, they fucked up there too, but go ahead.
yeah, the thing is,
No,
is
no,
that they didn't hold to
it's a
that
matter
either,
of
so
degrees.
That's immaterial to my point.
Yeah.
You would have to include all the books, especially Mary's book. Mary Magdalene's book would absolutely have to be
You
included.
could certainly make an argument for some of the books that are not included in canon. I don't think you can make an argument for all of them. I mean, we would have to go.
Okay.
I don't
I'd
know
actually
enough
have to
about them
reread.
say.
I'd actually have to reread all of them to say all of them. I'll give you that one. But I'd say,
Some were obvious forgeries, and like
well,
happened
I'd say
way too
that
late.
the extra chapters to Corinthians.
Honestly,
I'd
I
say
think Revelation should have been excluded, but
Revelation's
like,
dope.
well,
That's only.
Revelation's
what I'm
awesome.
saying is like
I mean, it's a
definitely
fun
the
read.
extra
There's no
the
doubt
extra
about
four
that.
chapter or extra four chapters of
But it was just written
Corinthians.
so
Second
late.
Corinthians should be in there.
It's a second century book.
The fourth the extra five chapters of Luke should be in there. That's the thing. They even removed parts of the Gospels at those.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, that's what I mean. Should we not, in modern times, now that we understand that a vast majority of those reasons were politically biased, etc., should they not be included in the modern Bible?
Well, I mean, to say that politics was
At the
part
very
of it-
least, at least for reference, if not for canonical.
But we
inclusion.
do. Everything's available. I mean,
Everything's available,
we
but
have
it's
the
not
internet.
included in the frickin' Bible that you buy, and therefore that it's not the same thing that I'm implying.
There's some Bibles that
Even-
do include it.
I've yet to see a Bible that
Called the
included the
Google
goddamn Gospel of
Bible.
Mary Magdalene.
Yeah. No, if you were to buy a physical, there are because they print everything.
Okay, I'd have to see that. I just haven't seen that one.
If they can make a buck on something, they'll print it. But the
Yeah, I've
point
seen
is,
some of the other books, but not that one.
there's like an infinite number of not really infinite.
Yeah,
but there's
no, I
there's
get you.
a very large number of possible combinations of books that you could do, and you can't like do them all. But you can find them all online, and that's that's sort of the
Okay, Brento, you might be able to
Yep.
give me this one from a non-Catholic point of view. How many people around you know any of those books in the Christian faith of people?
But they
you
even know they
personally?
exist.
I don't even know. Yeah, I can't even remember which ones he said. Which ones are you talking about? Like,
Oh,
Wow.
dude, there's a lot of canonical books or non-canonical books that weren't included. Specifically, the one I always point out is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. She actually wrote
most
a gospel
people-
that was not
the
included.
Gospel of Thomas is pretty popular for
That
people.
most people are unaware unless they've like undergone some sort of Catholic education.
Okay.
But those aren't even like okay, so what Protestants call Apocrypha, Catholics call Deuterocanon because we consider them to be canon. And then we have a whole other set of books that the Protestants don't even recognize that exist at all, and that we call those Apocrypha. So, and then there's books that are even outside of our Apocrypha. So, yeah, that's the sort of hierarchy of the New Testament. But that
Well, yeah.
gets really technical. I mean, the fact is, it's the basic story of
Should
the
they?
Gospels,
Okay, how
and
about
the
this?
fact that
Not included in the Bible. Should not every Christian be educated on them at least
yes, well, yeah, well,
by their
no,
pastors, etc.?
every no, because
To a bare
it
minimum. I'm
gets
not
esoteric.
expecting scholarly levels of
Uh,
education here, right, Kyle?
pause
I'd
for a
just be
second.
happy if people understood the first three Gospels.
Pause for a second.
Honestly.
Desperado Sensei, if you want to come in, we'd love to have you, friend.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, the more the merrier here. But thank you for being here, friend.
Oh, Desperado Sensei is always good chat.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But
Oh
okay,
yeah, he and I got chatting about Japan the other day. We got chat for like 3 hours. It was awesome.
so back to the point that I keep driving at here, and I goes a slippery fucking bastard.
Yeah.
But like, oh, okay, so he's got the kids. All right, yeah, that's no problem. Desperado Sensei. Well, thanks for stopping by, one or the other. But is that you are you wanted to create a god that is benevolent, right? In the way in your eyes, you found parts of the Bible that were benevolent, and you're like, well, these are clearly more divinely inspired than the others. These are clearly written by hands that understood God better than the others. Rather than
well, I think I would word that with reverse emphasis. What I'm saying is they're all sort of grasping the mind of God, but we all sort of stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So like it's just the same way like how like physics evolves, right? I'm not sure that Einstein could have come up with his equations if he didn't know Newton. And so I don't think you would say, as a result, Newton was dumber than Einstein, for instance, or didn't have the facility to intuit or infer like the laws of the universe. I think you would just say that Einstein started out having read everything that came before, and that allowed him to advance science. And that's the way progressive revelation looks at scripture, that over time because we understand the best parts of tradition as it's moving forward, we're able to sort of refine that further and get closer to the mind of God. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah, it's that we are always learning. Like God doesn't change. Like this is something I have a really big hard time talking to any Christians about, is that they'll be like, well, God changed his mind or God got angry. Like, yeah. I don't think God gets angry, and I don't think God could change his mind. So when people say that stuff, I'm like, I look, and they're like, well, it says so in the Bible, and I'm like, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about this. Really, I just don't. We're probably not going to, but we'll see.
Right. But that's where Vico comes in, right? Vico says that, the caveman or whatever heard the thunderclap, and inside that thunderclap was the voice of God, and that's where, religion came from, that first sort of encounter. And so he certainly would interpret that as God being mad, or he might interpret it as God being mad. Right. But is that really God being mad, or is that just like our first sort of intuitive understanding of what we think God is? I think it's more that. And so to say that, there's 4 different authors of Genesis, for instance, they're all sort of interspersed and cut and pasted together. I don't think those 4 authors really didn't even seem to have the same vision of God as each other. Like there's a lot of sort of contradictions there. But again, that's man sort of trying to intuit divine purpose, and then, it's something that you wrestle with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody in chat. Yeah, Green's Plenty. Yeah, that's true, but that was because of a different legend. It wasn't God. It was actually they feared some great warrior was coming back from the dead to get them.
Was it Shattered Court? Is Twitch Politics dying? Fuck me. God damn it, was not paying attention.
Just say yes.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, yeah, it's getting more scattered, and yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I guess that's the simple answer.
I don't think it's dying. I think it's in a lull, and when election cycle comes back, it will pick back up again. I think it'll be a roller coaster.
But it's more than that. It's like the fact that people are like actually leaving Twitch.
Mhm.
So like,
You think gamers are leaving Twitch too, or just debate politics people?
I think this is people who do debate, especially since Twitch tossed out Destiny, and that was a big problem for us. So a lot of people are just going to where he's at, which don't we're doing.
Yeah, and they toss him out for pretty much nothing. So
Yeah.
it seems like it's like, okay, this is not a good place to invest your life or time or anything really. So, your business, don't build your business.
Yeah, there's some
Shut it
people
down for
who
nothing.
there's some people who believe that Twitch just wants politics to be gone. Like they don't, they want to be a gaming platform. They don't want to be known for debates and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't even game on Twitch anymore. They're just doing panels, or they're just doing React Andes. And...
The biggest moneymaker, or not moneymaker, I should say.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They haven't kicked off Hassan. Is that what you mean?
No. I'm
okay.
saying that their biggest category is just chatting. People just like talking to people, interacting with them. And
absolutely.
They don't seem to fully recognize that, at least in Twitch US, because there are other countries, like they market Twitch differently. The US team specifically doesn't, like, I don't know, it doesn't see the value as much of that, so they focus on the gaming side, but like the chatting side, where people just getting to know others, that's the big money maker. That's what attracts people to streamers.
I'd even argue there's other Twitch poll spaces than ours that even I frequent. There's tech people who talk about all the tech law and tech policies that are coming out there. I mean, there's a lot of other spaces. I've even tried bringing a couple in. Like there's military wings that are about the politics of the military, etc. All talking here on Twitch. Like there's this one guy, U.S. Army Overlord. I've tried bringing over to your channel a couple of times, but he doesn't stream at the same times you do.
And Quark is asking me what I'm going to do. I don't know. Moving to YouTube isn't as easy as it seems. I have my reasons for
You
staying.
just may have to do both for a while until Twitch poll dies off, and hopefully your YouTube channel will have grown by then.
Yeah, it's not. I can tell you that like, people like sometimes don't understand my choices, but believe me, I put a lot of thought into my things that I do. Because that's how I make money. So yeah, I put a lot of thought into that. And yeah. So anyway, I don't have all the answers for you, I can assure you. But so just have Destiny blow you up. Oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah, how does that work? Like, let's say you you have a panel like you have. Destiny used to drop in all the time on your panels. Like, what kind of a boost did you get whenever that happened on Twitch?
By a lot. Like a lot.
But like, did you get any stickiness from that? Like, did they come back the following week when Destiny wasn't there?
A lot.
Not all of them, obviously, but some of them.
You can ask people, and sometimes I ask, "Hey, where'd you guys find me?" And a lot of them will say from Destiny. Yeah, there was a lot of stickiness.
So maybe you can replicate that with Destiny dropping in on this side too.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're like Zombie, and you can be Pee-wee, like Pee-wee's Playhouse. No? Okay.
But in any case, back to the thing we were discussing. Oh, thank you for the 400 yen. 400 yen. Oh, thank you, Desperado Sensei, for that. I was not expecting the yen. I wasn't expecting that. But thank you for
Oh,
the
there you go.
$2.78.
Well, you're playing the right game for that, right?
Yeah. Indeed, I am. Indeed, I am. But thank you.
Boy,
Seriously,
how
I do
hard is
appreciate
this
it.
game? It looks interesting. I'm kind of interested in maybe picking it up.
Ghost of Tsushima.
hmm
Oh yeah, it's a
I
great
haven't
game.
put it.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
well,
but
it's
how
a,
hard is it? Is
it's
this
a.
Dark Souls territory, or is
This is
this
not Dark
more
Souls
reasonable?
territory. Absolutely
Okay,
not.
good. Okay, cool.
Um,
I'm
but
gonna have to learn that culture, like the Asian culture, just generally pretty soon, because that's right now 100% of my students are Chinese, because that's the community that we're drawing from right now. It's gonna change as we
so
recruit.
why are you talking about then learning Dark Souls? Community? Why Dark
No,
Souls
no,
is
no.
Japanese?
No, it wouldn't be. I don't mean gaming in specific, but there's a lot of stuff like that those kids know, like from their families and stuff like that. That I like. I don't know anime. I don't know manga or any of that
Oh,
stuff. But these kids are all into all that stuff.
okay.
So I'm gonna have to learn some of it, just to
So
Well,
relate
about
to
the
them.
Chinese
I think
cartoons.
anime, me and Prime can set you up with a list that you'll be on for a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, certainly.
yeah.
Um,
And of course, like any kid, they're also into Pokemon and stuff like that.
Now, I could recommend some smaller mangas that would be a lot easier for you, because they're like 17 issues, like 20 pages per issue, much easier to digest quickly.
yeah, they're
Right,
not One
right,
Piece.
No, I
right.
was thinking stuff like Record of Lodoss War, things like that.
Damn, that's like old deep cut stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, dude,
that's
I'm
yeah.
old. Remember this.
Oh, right, well, damn. It's
Yeah.
like some 80s shit.
Okay,
Yeah.
just remember, I'm fucking bald and old. He's the one who's gray and old.
I
Just
can.
watch,
I can.
just watch Cowboy Bebop, and then if you like it, try something else, and if you don't, give up.
I think that's a perfect. I think it's perfect. Yeah, start there.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop's a good one.
Okay.
I'd also say Akira because that's a movie. It's a little easier to digest in a single sitting.
I mean, those are
Um,
both titles I've heard before.
you can also read Akira, which is better.
Oh yeah, that agreed. Would you suggest Neon Genesis for him,
Neon
or would
Genesis
you
is one
say
of
that
my absolute favorite
mine too?
animes of all time.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but would you
There's-
recommend it as a initial?
A-
Because that one's
as a
got
starter?
some deeper stuff in it. Yeah, that's
I would
all.
say
I'm
no.
saying.
Our friend Aiko is more than capable of understanding the philosophy of Neon Genesis. Evangelion.
Yeah, no. I was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's
I mean,
only
I'd say
one
Neon
anime I've
Genesis
seen.
for sure.
It was about librarians, and somehow librarians had superpowers. I can't remember why.
Oh God.
that sounds lame. But like, if he was younger, then I actually wouldn't suggest starting with Evangelion. But he's not, and
Yeah, fair.
he's smart and can do things.
Oh, Battleship Yamamoto. Of course, I saw it as a kid as Star Blazers. I have seen that.
Macross one be another good one.
That's like Speed Racer old.
So's Macross. Macross is 88.
Grew up with Speed Racer C.
See, that's oh God, that's another underrated thing. But we're derailing the topic dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, my biggest issue with the religions in general is in so many of them. I won't just blame Christianity. There's Jewish, there's Muslim, all fall into these. Too many literalists. Not just fundamentalists, literalists. That poisons the well so dramatically. Like,
But-
it is not uncommon in my state to hear somebody say the Earth is 6,000 years old.
It
But you see, to me, create literalism. I understand that they're different words, but they're so highly overlapping that they're almost the same circle in the Venn diagram.
I
But
don't
then
know.
wouldn't that argument apply to philosophy and religion too? Because that's the exact same analogy you gave for those two overlaps.
Yeah, except that I don't think they're not overlapping to the same degree. I think that it's what I'm saying is that fundamentalism and literalism are almost the same circle. Whereas religion and philosophy are like, maybe 50% overlapped or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I can't give it a number, but
Yeah, we're just guessing here. We're not
yeah.
researchers on this shit.
I like progressive revelation because it happens to align with my values, at least according to what I've seen from you. I like it that
Right.
it just happens to do that. I don't like it for its theological reasoning. I don't think that it makes any particular um, sense to say that these, because we're dealing with a supernatural book here, right? We're dealing with these supernatural elements. I think it's convenient to say that I guess God didn't understand how to reveal himself to these previous writers of the Bible, of parts of the Bible. And then, sorry, does anyone hear static? Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Oh, it
But
may
yeah,
have been my chair. Sorry.
no problem.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of Catholics who will tell me, probably most Catholics will tell me, I'm way too wishy-washy on this stuff.
Yeah,
And,
and I'm saying that it's bullshit. Like I'm saying that like it's it's just convenient that like
yeah, I'm a
okay,
cafeteria Catholic.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I've never denied that.
All right. So I mean, as long as you understand there's like, the theological underpinnings here are kind of are weak, then sure.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, I mean, that's welcome to being human, right? Like we always
But you don't have to. You could just let it go, right?
No.
Except that I believe that what the scripture is grasping for is real,
Yes.
and
Right.
I call that God. And so, yes, I believe that
Sorry.
there's a real, that the gospel, the gospel is an account of a God who came to earth, and had his teachings, and then the people who followed him like wrote down as best they could like the shit that he said, and I think that what they wrote, is specifically the Gospels, the 4 books of the Gospels, are so profound. It had such an impact on me, like studying them. Like I translated them from the Greek. Like that's why I didn't take it for that reason. I took Greek to read Aristotle, but it also afforded me the opportunity to read the Bible. And frankly, the Bible's easier to read than any other work because it was written by a fisherman and it's very simple Greek. But that's another reason to read it, is because it's easy. And the reason I did it was because it was having such a profound impact on me, and I wanted to understand it maybe at a deeper level. And I mean, I don't know. I just nothing else. Like there are philosophical works that had a similar impact on me too. But yeah, that's why I'm a Christian, is because I read the Gospels and I was persuaded.
But you haven't investigated other.
I have. I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read the.
Well,
this was a long time ago. I couldn't quote it to you today.
Oh, fair enough.
I've read the Upanishads. Yeah, I've made a study
You are
of it.
the one who would actually read that. All right, I'll give that to you. You are exactly the type of person who would have done that. Most
Well, I haven't read
Christians
it
don't.
as deeply as Jack probably has, because I'm not a pagan. But
Well, yeah. I've read a lot of these things for classes and things I took in college, but I didn't go to a religious university. For me, it was ancient history study. So the religions I studied are older in general.
so Jack, have you ever, considering that you kind of have a similar crossover, have you ever read Thomas Merton?
Not everything he's written, but yes, I've read.
Yeah, just
I've
the Seven Story Mountains is all you really need to read.
Oh, okay, then yes, I have.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, that sort of answers Prime's question. Like, this is a Catholic monk who went and lived with Buddhist monks and found out that his aesthetic lined up with theirs perfectly. And he lived for years with Buddhist monks, and they sort of exchanged, their understanding of their faith traditions and the wisdom that comes from it. And he wrote, books about how Catholicism and Buddhism, like, are very similar. They're almost,
And then there was the Portuguese Jesuit in Japan who did the same thing with Shinto.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. Honestly,
Some people say
when I
he's a
read
secret
that,
Buddhist.
when I read that, I got that more as he assimilated to their culture because there were some similarities, and he dropped enough of the European issues to where he could be accepted within their culture. Because that's the same thing the Jesuits did in Japan. They wore the saffron robes of the
Yes.
Gugu.
Right.
Now
Exactly.
they wore it in the Jesuit style, but they wore the color.
Yeah.
They stopped using censer burners and started using incense sticks, so on and so forth. I mean, they adopted more of the culture of the land they were in than their original culture, and only practiced the hardcore or Jesuit traditions behind closed doors where converted wouldn't see it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's theological outreach between religions. I think that's important.
But that almost seems like
Ecumenism, it's called.
assimilative manipulation, especially when we're talking to Jesuits in Japan. That was specifically their goal. They wanted to convert the shogunate, and by them the emperor.
Yeah, but in Thomas Merton's case, he found himself to be as converted as the people he was trying to convert. Like his impulse to convert sort of became overtaken by his willingness to be converted in a way. Like he'd never stopped being Catholic, but although a lot of people did accuse him of being a secret Buddhist, but what he found was that the walls that were between those faiths weren't so thick. I don't know. I just think this is my philosophy for a debate too. You have to not only persuade, but you have to allow yourself to be persuaded by the person that you're debating. You have to be moved.
I now wonder if maybe Merton influenced my belief, because my belief is kind of tricky to most people. I'll explain it in the simplest terms so that Prime can understand it. I've explained it to Icon before. I'm an eclectotheistic is a term I came up with. I believe all the religions of the world are correct. Its followers have got it really wrong, that theirs is the only way. I believe there's multiple gods. Just as much as I believe Yahweh exists, I believe that, Cucullin exists. It is the amount of followers and the belief of those followers that give the gods the power. And now that you're bringing up Merton again, I wonder if maybe he influenced that part of my philosophy.
Could be. Prime, have you ever? Surely this has happened. Have you ever found has your mind changed as a result of some of the debate panels you've been in?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, Prime. Oh well.
Has Brento ever flipped you on anything?
Brento. You're a little slow on the draw, Brento. You can be a little quicker.
I think Brento has. I mean, Brento and I have a lot of conversations. I enjoy my conversation with Brento. And
He's very patient with me.
To Brento.
I feel like I yell at you a lot.
Yeah, you do, but then you always apologize afterwards.
That's true.
And Brento, you changed my mind, because my experience with you in chat was not good. My experience with you on panels, much better.
Oh yeah, chat's a cesspool.
Yeah, it really is. It
really
is.
Yeah. That literally people will just at me like, "Fuck you, you trash fucker!" Like, garbage.
I was one of them. I was one of them.
Yeah, but then then you talk to them on stream, and they're like reasonable people, and it's like, what?
Well, it's because you were just as unreasonable in chat as we are, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, we all come across that way. That's true.
Have you seen that meme with the dogs that are like on either side of a glass door and they're barking and barking, like attacking, and as soon as they open the door, they're like chill.
There's a video that's better than the glass door. It is a gate.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It's a motorized gate in Russia, and the dog's just barking and barking and barking. The gate opens, they follow the gate.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the gate disappears, they
split. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and that's honestly how I feel about chat. It really is, and that's why I'm far more abrasive in chat than I will be on panels, unless somebody really pushes me the wrong way. And so far nobody's done that, except I got a little close with defending Alex Jones.
Yeah,
that one almost got me.
Listening in motion. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, that too, Desperado Sensei. Yeah, you definitely influence the world through your silk trade.
Your subtrain?
Silk train. Trade.
Silk train. Oh, silk trade. Silk trade, gotcha.
Yeah, silk was imported from China to Japan, refined into very high quality cloth, and was worth its weight in gold at one point.
Yeah. Silk was incredibly valuable. Still is, just not as much as it was, right?
Oh, good brocades actually almost as valuable as gold now. It's nuts. We've had droughts worldwide for like 3 years now. It's affecting a lot of shit now.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, and domestically too.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's got flooding now that's just like Jackson's.
I paid $7 for a fucking honeydew the other day. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, just put that into perspective. That's usually about $2.99 here. We grow them here in Brento.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like I don't have to pay import tariffs or any of that shit. And it was almost
Right.
$7 a piece here.
Wait, where are you again?
Arkansas.
Oh,
We grow a lot of watermelon.
Oh, you guys grow honeydew in
strawberries.
Arkansas? I didn't know that.
Actually, we're the largest rice producer outside of Asia, as well.
Wow, that's cool.
We are one of the
Like
few
Uncle
places
Ben's rice,
in the
or is
world.
it?
No,
like
we're actually one of the very few places in the world to export our rice to Japan. It's of such high quality.
Wow, that's great. Wow, fuck, man, I'm gonna try some of that Arkansas rice.
Yeah, it's you can find it just about anywhere in the states. But yeah, it's amazing the shit we grow here. We're the natural state. But
That's
yeah, he's
awesome.
right. So silk is insanely valuable, and Japan is still one of the powerhouses. I think China beats them now just because of sheer size, but I think Japan still has the highest quality.
Damn, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. There's a expression from Japan I learned when I was in Okinawa. Japan takes everything from around the world and makes it their own and makes it the best.
That's bitching.
That's their mentality about foreign cultures.
That's awesome.
But going back to the religion thing, I'm starting to wonder how much of these, the progressive revelation, the adaptive religion of the more non-denominational sects, if it is assimilative to the cultures they're in, and hence why we see more rigid adherence to it in places like Poland or Turkey, where they still have high Catholic amounts, but they don't accept the abortion. They don't accept, etc.
Wait, so what are you wondering? You're wondering if
it's assimilative, if it's less that the religion changed because it was growing through logic, it was growing through necessity, because you were literally assimilating into the culture.
that happens too, but then you have to ask the question of why one assimilates and why one and why not the other. If you have two choices and you make a choice between some two, or there's two things and one's growing.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm saying I
it's
want
the inherent
more.
thing. So
that was the question: is which
okay,
one
sure.
is more? It makes me wonder now. Because I had forgot about Merton. I mean, I remembered he lived as a Buddhist monk, but I had forgot how long he lived as a Buddhist
Well, I
monk.
think the big impact is on secular culture. Like a lot of our sort of moral practices in the secular world have a lot of those that have sort of been transmitted through various faith traditions. In the West, it's been Christianity, but the most popular aspects of those have sort of continued. Even if we've stopped becoming religious, we still have that moral base, that is transmitted through religion. And I'm sure that, when the Muslim world secularizes, it'll be the same. It actually already is.
That's what I was saying. There's a couple of Muslim countries that have.
Well,
secularized.
there's America, there's Europe. I mean, there's secular parts of the world where Muslims exist.
Well, no,
France
I was going to
especially.
say there's even predominantly Muslim nations that are secularizing, and that's what I'm saying. It's happening now.
It happened in
they're
Turkey,
fighting,
but that kind of fell apart.
for different reasons, though.
Yeah. Morocco, maybe a little bit.
I was about to say Morocco and Algiers.
Yeah. But it's going to take time. But you can see them secularize. I think in America we've had the best experiment. You can see the Muslims here secularize extremely well.
Oh, and I agree. And like, I'll sit here and I will be the first to say America's not the greatest country in the world. I hate that line, but I'd say we also are the best experiment currently.
Well, we've just been
Find me
doing
a
it for the
better one.
longest.
Arguably, because places like Sweden, or not Sweden, but Switzerland, etc., have been trying to do similar things to us for longer. That's what I'm saying. It's like, so far we're
But
the
that's
best.
just it. The European experiments, at least with Muslims, hasn't been great. They haven't been assimilating. You know, they sort of keep
I'd
to
have to look into
themselves.
that more.
There's a lot of law,
hard.
like France had to pass these laws. Like there's been laws against the veils, especially in schools. There's been laws against
didn't know that part.
minarets. There's been laws against minarets because they don't want Muslims concentrating in certain areas, and a lot of that is because it's very difficult for a Muslim to like become
I'll have to get
accepted.
into Yo-Yo in a chat because he lives in France, so he can.
Yeah,
give
well,
me
they
the
have a hard
feedback
time
on
getting
that.
accepted. They're not seen as truly French.
Yeah,
So,
like I said, he could give me the deep
whereas
dive on
here,
that.
everyone's accepted as an American, really.
Theoretically.
Compared to Europe,
Yeah,
this
I
is all-
agree. I know, I
it's
agree.
it's all relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I definitely agree we're the best experiment currently. Do I believe that
When
we
it
have?
comes to that particular thing, we're the best experiment. We're not the best experiment for, say, healthcare policy.
I would
Well, I'd say overall, even though our negatives, because with our negatives, and there are plenty that we could go on for days, and we do. Hence why we have all these panels.
But
You know,
Scandinavia, I think, is doing really well in a lot of areas, especially.
yeah, but that's more recent, in my opinion, because they were very
Yeah, the
racially
past
charged 25
50 to
years
100
ago.
years. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
say
I
even
mean,
25 years ago.
I'm compartmentalizing, but
I
I'm talking.
have to remember that you do that on every topic.
Yes, right, because you can suck and you can be great at the same time, just on different areas. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
What was that, Brento?
I said that's true.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
You can be smart and dumb.
I think one of the reasons we get along, on panel and off panel, is because we compartmentalize. You know, if we were constantly pissed at each other for our differences, then
I don't know. There's a few people that cross those lines that, nah, man, they're going to be dismissed by me instantly. I'll be polite if they show up on panel, but I'm never going to take them seriously again. Because they just gone too far. There's just certain people who go too far. Like I've never interacted with Keffels. If I interacted with Keffels, I couldn't take her seriously. I want her all the best in the world, but she has done too many bad things for me to want to interact with her in any good faith way.
Apples is such a puzzle to think about because she's both a victim and an abuser, and it's really hard.
It works.
It's so well, it is, but it's also
Generally,
it's so hard to like not look at just one of those things, and be like a uber supporter who thinks she can do no wrong, or someone who thinks like she's a monster, and
For me, I think she's fighting the good fight in all the wrong ways.
yeah, I mean,
that's my wording for people who do things like she is.
Yeah, somebody put it really well
people
on one of the streams. I heard someone said that she's a Kiwi farmer. Like Kiwi Farms turned her into a Kiwi farmer because she started behaving.
I guess I haven't watched enough of her content to get that, because I also never logged into Kiwi Farms before it was getting taken down. I'm like, what the fuck is this bullshit?
Yeah, it's just she started doxing people because people were doxing her, and it turned into an eye for an eye.
I'll never agree with doxing and swatting and all that crap. That shit's
I mean, someone can get hurt.
No, people have.
Yeah,
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
There's people no longer on this earth because of that shit, and I believe that every single one of those people who swatted those individuals deserve an attempted murder charge, like we now do in several states. Like I believe this is one of those times that should have been retroactive, because we just didn't keep up with the tech. But yeah, no, I get you. We can be dumb and smart at the same time, but it's just like, I get where Prime's coming from, because I'm the same way. Religion to me has been a net negative on modern society.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that in a lot of areas that's true, but again, if
well, that's why I say net overall, not just
net overall.
But
I think if it were a net overall, I think it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I also think if the good people leave the faith, then that's a very powerful tool that gets left in the hands of terrible people. And I think we're seeing that happen actually, because I think the sort of the secular revolution or whatever took a lot of people. The church used to be intellectually vibrant, and
Yeah.
Okay,
it's not as much anymore because a lot of the smartest people have come to the same conclusion that Prime has. But the church still has a lot of power, so we're basically handing that power over to people who don't do a lot of thinking.
Oh, I
And
guess
that's
that would give
not
me a
good.
question for this. Got an update on the Bannon front with the College Cardinals? Has he been ousted from the Vatican yet?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, he doesn't go to the Vatican and talk to the Pope, but he's talking to various bishops in Europe. Especially
Oh, he's doing the Europe tour. I thought he was
especially
doing
Eastern
the Rome
Europe.
tour.
Like, so he goes into like Russian Orthodox churches and stuff like
Okay.
that.
I
because
thought he
he's
was
sort of
doing the
aligned.
Cardinal tour, not the Bishop.
He is. He's trying to get Western Cardinals to the degree that he can, but he's not going to get a Franciscan. He might get a Benedictine or a John Paulite. But they're shrinking in numbers.
I just want to say, like, I think if religion was a net negative, I think
I
it
said
would have.
net negative to modern society, not a net negative to.
I thought you said over human history.
No.
All people.
To modern history, meaning the last 300 years. Pretty much since the Renaissance.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I
because here's the
disagree on
thing:
that, but
ancient man, in my opinion, ancient man needed religion, or we would still be tribal.
I see people who say they're not religious or that they don't have a religion behaving religiously. I think
I agree.
religion
I agree.
is a
Agreed.
it's like a function of human behavior, and I think what people do around religions and God, they will do around what they think is most important to them and the most true. So
And you
I
quite
don't think we get rid
possibly
of it.
could be right. I don't think we can get rid of it, nor do I think we should. What I said
Because
is
we
that
have the
net
religious
negative-
impulse in us. Like,
Yeah.
even if we could get rid of it for a generation, like something would, like, we would invent something.
It would be
because
a
it's-
new religion 3 generations from now. Yeah.
And
I'm
also, I think I've talked to Prime about this before. Like, we've tried state atheism, and it's come out. It's created atrocities, on par with the atrocities.
What? Oh man, I don't know if we talked about that before.
Oh, have we?
Well,
have we
I
not?
disagree
No,
with everything
he's
you
brought
guys
it
have
up
been
before.
saying, but
Go ahead.
and I disagree with anything you guys have been saying. But
Okay, all right. Pol Pot, Mao,
Right.
Stalin, they all imposed state atheism. I mean, 20th century is basically an experiment of secularism in the West versus state atheism in the
hon,
East.
are you hon? If you by state atheism, are you simply saying that it's government imposed or we force people to stop?
Yes.
Okay. If that's the case, then yeah,
Religion
I
is
wouldn't.
banned.
I wouldn't.
Religion
I
was
wouldn't
banned
ban. Then I wouldn't
in
ban
a
any
large
religion.
chunk of the world.
I wouldn't ban any religion. I think religion is, parasite
Yeah.
on humanity, but I wouldn't
Well,
ban it.
Okay,
it's
but
the
state
job of
atheism
people
was
to
was equally a parasite. Like, instantly turned into like
Sure,
a monstrous
okay.
regimes
Sure.
over hundreds of millions of people's lives. Like,
That's fine.
multiple experiments throughout the world. Every single one of them had the same result.
That's all fine.
The Reign of Terror in France too.
That's okay. Yeah, sure. But of course, more people, dying over religion than anything else. But like that's fine. I'm willing to say that you shouldn't force a lot of people. If secularism is the way to go, then we should be convincing people. Oh, motherfucker! I'm just not.
I'll tell you this. I think if you were to just pick a 100-year period in human history, I think state atheism might have killed more than any given century, even with the Catholic Church. Like, just the number that Stalin killed alone. But I mean, Pol Pot wiped out like
1
I don't know
million.
what percentage of his country, like massive.
It was just 1 million people. 1.01
Just a million. Yeah.
million were killed. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
And I was there 3 years later. It was not a good thing.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's.
I don't know why
think,
you keep bringing it up though. I keep telling you.
because
that,
it's
like,
a
that's
feature.
fine.
Because what I'm saying is what you're attributing to religion, I'm saying is a feature of humanity. We ran the experiment, take religion out of the picture, and we still do it.
No. Hold on. We didn't run the experiment. And we didn't take religion out of humanity. If you simply a state imposing that you can't have religion, doesn't mean that people stop worshiping. People will still worship.
No, but it
You know
wasn't the
this.
worshippers that were killing.
But that
in the killing
doesn't-
fields, it was
but
atheists.
This is not. Holy crap! This is not an experiment on and whether like a secular.
No, not secular. Secularism has succeeded. Secularism is what stopped wars. I'm talking about anti-clericalism, which is what these state atheist regimes were. That's fundamentally different. I'm a
I'm
secularist.
saying. I would say that the tool of state atheism is when usually it's imposed. It's because the people in charge don't want a power
Yes.
that is greater than them. Like
Right.
that's the reason why
Right.
they're doing it. It's not because
Exactly.
they have some sort of ideological underpinning that we can
Yeah, that's
attribute
not my claim.
across these. Great. So then this is worthless, right? Like
No.
And again, like it's what I'm trying to say is that like what am I trying to say at this point? I'm doing a few things right now at the same time.
All I'm saying is when you remove religion from the picture, the slaughter doesn't stop. That's what we found out in the 20th century.
Yeah, but
secularism
the
solves the.
No. But the people in charge are like the worst people, right?
Yes.
Like the
Yes.
no. But I'm saying that
This is vanguardism, right? These are all attempts to establish Marxism. They all take the shortcut of vanguardism every single time. Like you're not getting this sort of like stateless, springing up of like unions, like what Vosh wants. Like that never happens. It's always the vanguardists who come and take power and ban religion and then like slaughter millions of people because they're trying to skip the
so
capitalist stage in
don't
order
do
to
that.
get to socialism. Yeah,
Okay.
right. Don't do that.
They always do though.
Yeah,
But
it
you're
happens
not-
every time.
Yeah. But the problem is that what you're saying is, oh, hey, it's because we removed religion, and this.
No.
is what you
No, I'm not saying it's because we remove religion. I'm saying that whether you remove religion or keep religion, the slaughter is the same. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter. Like what I'm saying is you can't blame religion for it because this is just something that humans do to each other. And when you remove religion, we still do it to each other.
Blame religion. It's fair.
I mean, you can, but you're wrong.
Yeah, you're not going to change. You're not going to fix the problem. You can blame whoever you'd like. Like it's
Secularism
you
works
can
because
absolutely. Fuck. I'm sorry. I'm like doing like 10 things here.
But the alternative to that, what we found after World War II, is we just spread secularism in the West everywhere, and that was a result of the American experiment, which I think is, I'm sorry, but I'm a bit of an American exceptionalist in that regard. We invented the philosophers in Europe invented secularism, but America practiced it for the first time. And then in the middle of the 20th century, we spread it all throughout Western Europe. Whereas the alternative, which was state atheism, is what happened in the East. And clearly secularism was wildly successful, and state atheism gave us the same results as theocracies.
Sorry, say that last part again.
Okay. So what happened is secularism blooms in the United States. This is where it's first practiced, and then after the reign of terror and all that bullshit that happens in Europe, ultimately in the 20th century we finally spread secularism throughout Western Europe, and in the East they have instead anti-clericalism or state atheism, right, which is under these vanguardist Marxists, and they get the same result as theocracies every single time. Theocracies.
Okay,
and
sure. Okay, if you want to say that people who are imposing a violent autocracy on others will also kill people as well as theocrats, then sure.
Right.
All right. Well,
in other words,
whatever.
religion doesn't change the situation at all.
No,
Whether it's there or
you can
not
say
there.
that religion is another cause of incredible violence. it's not that these things that it's simply the it sounds like to me what you're trying to say that the cause of violence is nothing more than human
Maybe it's
human
easier if
nature.
you if you state it in negative terms, which is to say, lack of secularism is what is a disaster. Like if you don't have a way of tolerating all these different beliefs, including the atheism, if you don't have a way of ensuring that they're all tolerated, then you're going to get violence.
Okay.
Secularism is the thing that solved it all. So lack of secularism is the problem.
Okay, that I would be willing to accept then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd be willing to accept that. Yeah. That secularism is an important mix. That I guess atheism without secularism would be a disaster. Okay, I'd be willing to accept that.
Yeah, that's why I'm such a strong secularist. And as a Star Trek fan, I mean, that's what Gene Roddenberry believed too.
もう誰も信じられないね。何も知らない顔して
Yeah.
続とつるむ
That
なん
makes
て
sense.
恥知らずだよ。
Very difference between where we're heading and where Roddenberry predicted is he was a secular communist.
Shit, we all agreed on something.
That's really the difference between Roddenberry and a lot of other secularists. He was a secular communist. He wanted everybody to have everything provided for, including luxury.
Yeah, he described himself as a secular humanist.
And he created magical technology that would give us all everything.
Like cell phones.
Well, yeah, but if you go into the deeper parts of the story, it took us basically destroying ourselves to get there too. If you go into the deeper story of Star Trek, he killed off 2/3 of the Earth's population to get us to where we ended up being.
Technologically, the only thing he got wrong was the transporter because it's so much more advanced than everything else. And he didn't want that originally, but he didn't have the budget for shuttlecrafts. So that's why they did the beaming thing. It saved money on special effects.
Oh, really?
Piece more I didn't know.
Engage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that was the reason for that. That's interesting.
Yeah, me either, and I'm a huge
because it
Trekkie,
makes
and I
no
didn't know
sense.
that
Like the
one.
transporter is like, so much more advanced than everything else on the show.
Not really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
super advanced.
Yeah.
Well, okay, no. I would argue that Brent has a point. It is no more advanced than a warp core.
Yes, exact. Thank you. Right.
No, I
I
think.
mean,
no,
no, it is far more advanced.
We can
than
have
a
a
lot
warp
of
core in
other-
this century. We cannot have a transporter in this
Actually,
century.
I believe we possibly could with the research going into quantum entanglement. Now, will we? Probably not. But we technically could with the research that's going on.
It will solve a problem in that with quantum entanglement, we can communicate over vast distances.
And
instantaneously.
once we can communicate, then it's a matter of the matter energy conversion, which we're actually also working on with the fusion, fusion
with
lab.
quantum entanglement, nothing is transferred except for information. So you would have to have all of the base materials quantumly entangled before you assembled anything.
Ooh,
which you couldn't
think about that.
It's a chicken and egg problem, right? Because you have to have the constituent parts, but you can't move the constituent parts. All you're doing is replicating it. But then you need that stuff.
Well,
to
that
be
would
on
take
the
it
other side
into the
before
M
you can
theory.
send it.
That would take it into the M theory realm where teleportation wouldn't actually be transportation; it would be destruction in one and creation
Right.
in the other.
Yes. Well, that's what McCoy thought it was. That's why he hated transporters.
Yeah.
He never wanted
okay.
to be transported because he understood that he was just being killed and then copied.
Yeah. I thought those episodes were pretty interesting. And they went farther with that in Next Generation.
Many times,
Yeah.
and again in Voyager. Jesus, they played around with the transporters a lot.
Well, I was gonna say, what a sick nightmare to imagine that every person in your life around you is being destroyed and killed every moment, and then you're coming
Yeah,
back.
like-
Well, but here's my thing. Here's the thing.
Not for
If
me.
the-
Like, what?
And
wait,
with
hold on.
Riker,
About?
he didn't get destroyed one time, and so there were two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. That would
that's another
destroy.
thing.
That would
That's
just be
another
like the
thing,
most
yeah.
unbelievable nightmare in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
it's
but here's the
almost
thing, Brento. If
it's a
if
plot
you
line, no?
literally the old body was completely destroyed, we're not talking leaving fucking corpses around here, Rick and Morty style.
Yeah.
If the old body is completely destroyed and the new body completely recreated, dude, that could be a way to get rid of illness, tumors,
Well, but
etc.
the idea is that your consciousness is gone and you're dead. So
No, your
And
yeah,
somebody
consciousness
else
is
is
it's a
transferred.
experiencing
great
the
way to get
required.
rid of illness. That's true.
Well, no, your consciousness
You're
is
infected.
transferred because otherwise you wouldn't have the memories.
You'll be dead, and your clone will be alive without an illness.
Exactly.
Okay, now we're
Thank you.
going into
Like,
what was that Schwarzenegger movie,
That's how
Six
it
a
works.
Day,
yeah,
or
that
whatever
would
it
be
is.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's not even debatable anymore because the Riker episode proved it. Because
That's what I'm saying.
when it created
Yeah.
two of them, it accidentally. What it should have done is it should have killed one of them,
Right.
He
He
transported
survived.
and it didn't. So that proved it. That proved that that's what happened.
Well, actually,
That's what I'm saying. It's the nightmare. That's unbelievable.
I'm not exactly sure that's what the Riker episode proved. Hold on, like, let me kill these motherfuckers, and then I will go into detail
Teleport
why
them.
I think that.
Let me teleport these motherfuckers.
Like, okay, so,
Or on Voyager, Tuvix.
Yeah,
happened?
Tuvix
where
was
they combined two.
absolutely wronged. Like, Janeway's a murderer.
yeah, when the split. No, but okay, here's why I
Justice
don't
for Tuvix,
think,
man.
I don't think that it was necessarily that, because they were having. So what happened with Riker is that he was on a planet, some sort of, and I was experiencing some sort of storm, right? Some sort of
Right.
a weather phenomenon, and the beam going back, that was
It was split in
interrupted.
two. Yeah.
So like it seemed like basically his information was being he got broken up, right? And being sent off, and he his body, his energy went through the clouds, arrived at Enterprise, but then some of it got bounced back somehow, like it just got like reflected back like a mirror,
Yeah.
otherwise, and his body and his other body stayed down there rather than it being destroyed.
And his
Like-
other body, well, right, but it should have been destroyed. Is the point?
No.
Yeah, we're talking
He
about
should have been
double
killed.
Riker Green.
Listen. This is the stuff Section 31 doesn't want you to know.
I feel like, and that could be wrong, because it's not entirely clear to me too. Like it could,
Yeah, I
could be
mean, that's the other thing too, is the rules of Star Trek sort of change based on who the writer is.
Yeah.
So it's, to that degree, it's hard to say. Like, in
Well,
the Riker
and
episode,
it
it was
changes
one thing.
based
but-
on our current understanding of science at the time of the writing, because almost every one of these writers consults experts in the field as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how you transport a soul. Like, the closest thing I can think of would be if you could somehow physically transport the brain and put it in a new body on the other side or something.
Well,
so
what
that
if
the
the soul is
physical
literally
neurons are
just
there?
your consciousness, not any
well,
physical part of your body?
That's if you're
I don't,
assuming there is.
I don't
a
know how
soul.
that works.
But like,
Yeah.
If you're
Okay,
if it's-
but for you, Prime, we can just say mind.
yeah, well, exactly, the mind. Why?
What
why
I
would it
think
be
of when I
more
think of a
difficult to
soul is
transport
what
the
you think
mind
of.
than anything else.
Yeah. And so how do you transport the mind without transporting the brain? That's the question.
Oh, why would you not transport the brain? I'm really confused. Like, what?
He's talking about the fact that we're disintegrating the brain and we have no way to transfer the consciousness.
Yeah.
Is where he's getting
You
at.
wouldn't- I mean, look, if you're going to transfer all that matter to energy and then beam that energy down somewhere, then you can make an argument that's the same person. But if what you're doing is you're making a copy of the patterns in the body, and then you're replicating it on the other side, which is how it's sometimes explained in Star Trek, well, then you are killing somebody. And
Well, sometimes explained, but it's always explained as
Oh,
that's
you're
not the
talking about
correct thing. That's the
uniqueness.
fear-mongering position.
like fax machine,
But yeah,
or
yeah.
like an
Oh,
email.
you're talking about creating uniqueness. So rather than, yeah, so like breaking up the body, but like,
Making
that,
an
like
exact
it's
copy
like
on the other
that
side.
stuff, basically, right? So rather than like, so it's more like disassembling a person. Like imagine just like rather than
Yeah.
doing it quantumly, taking a person apart piece by piece and then transporting them and reassembling them, that person will be the same person, right?
Yes.
They're saying that within this process,
That's matter to energy transference and then back again.
yeah,
That's that theory of how it works. But the other theory of how it works, like when you read like in real life when they're doing scientific articles and they say, oh, they teleported an object for the first time.
yeah,
What they mean to say is they had a collection of atoms, or not atoms, maybe a collection of molecules or something. And they just like there was a circle, then they made a circle out of it. And then they told a machine, 100 miles away to order molecules in the same circle. And then they called that teleportation.
yeah.
Because what they did was they just arranged things the same way. And then they're just saying, well, there's no reason you can't just do that with more and more complicated stuff. So, like, this is a metal cup. Like, eventually we could say, okay, scan this cup. And on the other side, they replicate it. And that they're calling that teleportation. But really, they're just making a copy.
Yeah.
Or they're
I
rearranging.
get you. Like, I another theory. But
Yeah.
like, I know the theory, but like, I'm
And
saying
McCoy
that,
didn't trust it. Like, he believes that your soul isn't being transferred. Or he thinks, or at least he thinks it's enough of a possibility to where he doesn't like being transported. Of course, he only said that once. He said that in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He had a glorious beard at the time. That's a really interesting movie too, by the way.
Which one?
Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the very first one.
It is- it's a very
tried
good
to be
movie.
2001, so it was like doesn't feel like Star Trek really.
It's a very good movie, though.
Yeah,
consider
I did.
one
I
and
enjoyed
five
it. I enjoyed quite a bit.
I consider 1 and 5 worse than Generations.
Well, it is true that 2, 3, and 4 are like the core of Star Trek movies. Like you can just
Oh,
watch
I
those
was,
three
I
and
was,
be done with it.
I would say.
But I
2, 4,
enjoyed.
and
But I
6.
still enjoyed the first one a lot.
I would say 2, 4, and 6 personally.
Oh, you didn't like the Search for Spock?
Oh, I just think that Undiscovered Country was better. It's not that I dislike Search for Spock. I just think I put.
See,
6
I do
above.
2, 3, and 4 just because it's a natural trilogy. Like the storylines continue from one to the next.
Yeah, and I mean,
Spock dies, Spock gets resurrected,
you can't fault the whales. I mean,
and then the whales. Yeah.
George
Yeah,
and
the whales
Gracie
were fun.
are the true stars of that movie.
Oh, when they decided to make Star Trek a comedy, like they brought the whole franchise back to life again.
Yeah, Star Trek always had kind of like a fun sort of,
Yeah, it's
See,
classic.
feel
I
about
love
it.
Star Trek
I'm
3.
one
Yeah.
of those weird
It was always a little
Trekkies.
silly.
I actually like 5. I just consider 1 and 5 the worst out of all of them.
Is that the one with the Shakespeare guy?
Cybok with Cybok. Yeah. No. 6 is the one with Shakespeare. 5
yeah.
was the one with
Oh,
Spock's brother.
Cybok. That was an interesting concept, but execution.
I think they just jumped the shark by calling it God at the center of the galaxy. If they had called it some great powerful force, anything else
There's
that
a couple things I liked about that movie. One is like when Cybok like tried to take away everyone's pain, and man, I love that scene. I actually used this, even though I don't like the movie. I love this scene where McCoy like euthanizes his. It's very Catholic actually. He euthanizes his father and then finds out the next day that there was a cure.
Heavy. That's heavy shit.
Yeah, really heavy shit. Yeah, and
That's
he
like
carries,
the end of the movie The Mist.
and you find out that he carried that pain with him like throughout the series. You just didn't know it until that movie. I love that part. I love the beginning, like when they're camping and Kirk is rock climbing or whatever, and he has that interaction with Spock.
Oh, that was great, yeah.
That was hilarious. So there were parts of that movie I really loved, and I used that McCoy thing like
See, for
in
me,
class
the thing
when we're debating euthanasia. I use that scene.
Well, see, for me, the thing I loved about that movie is it showed the Romulan Vulcan split in Cybok because he took the Romulan side all emotion.
Well, the new season of
Discovery,
Rick and Morty.
Not Discovery.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah, yeah. No, the new
I like
season
Rick and Morty.
of. God
Good.
damn it! What show
Strange
is it?
New
Oh,
Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. The new season of Strange New Worlds is going to feature Cybok,
I
a
see,
young
here's
Cybok.
here's my thing. with the way that Ethan is playing Spock, I don't know how that's going to play out, and I don't know how I'm going to like that. Because I like Ethan's version of Spock, but I don't know, man. I like him better than Zachary Quinto, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the idea. And then one of the big, complaints about Spock's character was that, oh, he has a sister now. How come no one ever talked about his sister? All right, how come no one ever talked about Cybok until we found about him? Like, it's not the first time we've had this problem.
Yeah, and here's the thing: as much as a lot of people want to hate on Discovery there's obvious faults with it.
It went off the rails. Discovery jumped the shark in season 4.
But here's the thing: they perfectly explained it away. Why she wasn't talking about why.
I think they were always planning on that too.
Yeah, now I think I agree with you. I think they jumped the shark after they explained it away. But it's just like they perfectly
that whole the kid at the end who the whole reason for the burn is because the kid got that was dumb. And then all of season 4 was just fucking boring to me. But I hear
don't get me
they're
wrong.
Gonna go
Season 4 I enjoyed
episodic
just
in
for
season
the
5.
tech. Season 4 I like just because of the tech, but it was jumping the shark every other episode.
Yeah, I like the beginning of it. I like finding out what happened to the Federation in the future.
Well, that and I liked all the programmable matter and all that crap was fun. Even
so
even
season 5 might get better. Who knows?
Actually, we didn't even think about it. How many people here have watched it?
I've seen.
I watch all Star Trek, good and bad. I even watched all of Voyager.
The same. So that's why I just kind of assume that any Trekkie does.
Yeah, I mean, I even enjoyed Voyager, which I think is the worst Star Trek. But I watched the whole thing.
I disagree. I think Enterprise. I didn't like Bakula as Archer. I did not.
I loved him, but I think I have a soft spot for him because of Connell Lee.
Oh no, I love Bakula. I just didn't like him as Archer. I really didn't. And as much as I love Jolene Blaylock, I fucking hated her as T'Pol.
Yeah, it got better in the last season because they finally started giving fans what they wanted. Like at first they were like, we don't want to be Star Trek and we're going to try everything we can to not be Star Trek. And then they just realized on season 3 that, we need to be Star Trek.
Well, honestly, people will bitch at me for this one. I will argue this hill till I'll die on it without even a fucking question. DS9's the best series.
DS9 is amazing. Yeah.
That's not a hot take.
It's the best.
No,
that's the standard take. DS9 is absolutely the best series.
And TOSers. Yeah. Oh no, that's an extremely fucking hot take.
Yeah, it is.
Man, I'd say at least 50%.
Because they didn't like all
the
religious shit. They didn't like all the religious shit of the emissary and
at the time, but it's aged well. People like it. Oh,
it's.
At the time, it was controversial. People said it was too dark. Like Star Trek has to be optimistic and all this other stuff. That was the big controversy.
Did they not watch the fucking arc with Locutus?
Yeah.
Locutus.
Now I will say, like a lot of series, it was shaky in the beginning, but after Worf joins, it becomes that episode where he gets beat down by all the Jem'Hadar constantly, and he keeps getting up.
Oh, dude, that was especially because that's also where we get to see.
I cannot defeat this man. I can only kill him. That was peak Star Trek.
Well, and we got to see Garrick in such a human moment with an Auburn Tane.
Yeah,
that was such a great. It was a pair of
there's no question in my mind. DS9 was peak Star Trek. There's no question.
Yeah, and honestly, I now put Strange New Worlds pretty fucking close to it.
Oh, it's up there, but it's.
I think Anson Mount. Not yet, but it could get there. I think Anson Mount is about the best fucking Pike we could have ever asked for.
Well, I loved him on Hell on Wheels too.
Dude, I even loved him as Black Bolt. He's just a great actor in general.
Yeah, he just really series sucked. He was good in it.
Yeah. Then we got Ethan, Speak, but I forget how to pronounce his last name as Spot. Great actor. Great actor. So far, the only person I'm a little wishy-washy on is I heard the voice at the end. I'm a little worried about who they got to play him. I'm not going to reveal who it is in case people haven't watched it.
I trust him. I think they've earned it.
I think, dude, that's my favorite character of TOS. So if they fuck him up, I'm gonna be mad.
Wait, who?
I'll type it to you because I don't know how to watch it.
Oh, has everybody not seen it? I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I don't know, so I don't want to spoil it.
Well, because of the death that we saw, it was inevitable that would have to be the person.
Yeah, no, I know that, but that's what I'm saying. If they haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
That's a big reveal. And I hated that they killed off that character because that character was my favorite.
I think he was
the first
not.
season.
Yeah, I think he was not long for this world anyway. But I think
I knew he
should have
wasn't
gone.
because of the position.
They should have waited a couple more seasons. I think.
Agreed, but yeah, honestly, if you haven't watched it yet, Prime, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is
I haven't seen Strange New
honestly,
Worlds yet.
honestly, I put it the opening episode
It's the best of the
specifically,
new
and
tracks.
the opening episode and the season finale specifically, those two,
Oh,
probably
this
the
won't be a
best two
spoiler because it
episodes.
happens.
No,
This will
no,
be a
that's not a spoiler. Everybody knows finales.
No,
for
I'm
years.
saying what I'm about to say is not really all that much of a spoiler because it happens so soon in the first episode.
Oh,
But
okay.
he beams down to the planet. You're gonna love this, Prime. He beams down to the planet to like resolve a dispute or whatever, and he says, "Well, we had our problems on Earth's history," and it goes through like all the terrible stuff that happens or whatever.
And January 6th.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that scene! Oh my god,
It
dude,
was
it's so
brilliant.
good.
It was
What did
brilliant.
they do?
Someone.
Oh no, you have to watch it. I don't want to TLDR it too much, but he just basically compares what they're doing because they're a pre-warp civilization, to what Earth did, and he shows them our history.
And
And
one
I'm
of the
gonna
scenes
be
that he
honest,
shows is
but the thing is his speech.
the insurrection.
But the thing is his
Oh,
speech.
really?
Yeah.
His
It's just the
speech
noose
is
and,
so
and the
moving.
people like hitting that officer with the flagpole and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
But he also shows the stuff that happened in Bahrain. He shows parts of like the IRA struggles in the 70s.
the future World War III and
Yeah.
Khan and all that stuff.
Yeah, but his speech, like Prime, I am a pretty stoic individual when watching stuff. His speech almost moved me to tears. That's how well he delivered.
Okay.
Like you honestly.
Yeah, it's a good show.
believe
Look,
he
listen,
thought
if you've been burned by
word.
any of the Trek shows, don't let that make you think this one won't be good because this is I think the best of the new Treks for sure.
And it's episodic like the original series in TNG was. I mean, they're doing arcs, but it's more episodic, so they can
It
cut a lot more
feels like
nuance.
TOS, but without the racism.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, Greens Aplenty. I literally have a signed copy of the technical manual for Babylon 5 on my shelf, signed by JMS. I'm a big Babylon 5 fan.
So, in terms of the new Star Treks, I liked Discovery. At least initially, I haven't finished Discovery. I think
I think
somewhere in
it's
the
just
second
getting
season.
lazy now. Is all. That's my only complaint about Discovery.
So yeah, does Strange New Worlds take place after Discovery?
It takes place after
It's
season
kind of
2.
concurrent. It's kind of concurrent because of the way stuff goes on in
Well, it's not concurrent.
Discovery.
Oh, how far into Discovery are you?
I think I'm 1.5 seasons. I think I'm in season 2. I like
Oh, okay.
halfway through. That.
Yeah, it's after season 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
alright.
but
can
it's
start
that
watching.
same Spock. It's that same Pike. And then their crew. So far, the only person on the crew I dislike is number 1.
And the bridge looks a fucking lot like the TOS bridge.
Oh my god, it's so gorgeous.
But better.
It's so gorgeous. Like I nerd out over that show so
like
bad.
the stupid shit
So
that's
good.
on like the stupid screens that don't show anything or whatever. Those have been fixed. Like those look like real screens, But they've got the candy buttons. They've got the red like railing. They've got it. It looks a lot like the TOS bridge.
But hold on, is that a? I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing because like.
When we say it looks a lot like, it's an homage. Like when you look at it, you'll be like, "Oh, that's the original series."
What were you gonna say, Prime?
Everything's different.
Because I don't. It never made sense. Like I liked that. When they went in the past for Discovery, that they actually just end up updating everything because like I get it. the original series was made in its time, and it used its concept of futurism. I like when they like refresh that. So like if it's going backwards, then I'm less for that.
Yeah.
Like
It-
Well,
it-
let me put it
I
this
liked
way,
all
like
that
they,
like newfangled great stuff like they had in Discovery. That shit was so cool. Um, and
yeah, but
yeah.
they have to explain why the Enterprise didn't have that shit. So that's kind of what they do with Strange New Worlds. Like for instance, he says in Discovery, Pike says that they installed all those holograms and stuff on the Enterprise, and it like fucked everything up. So he said, "Rip them out. We're not doing holograms." That's his explanation as to why Enterprise doesn't have holograms in TOS, because so it won't have it in Strange New World.
yeah,
But that
and-
doesn't
Honestly,
make
you got to
sense.
look at it.
Yeah,
It looks
that
just
doesn't
as
actually
beautiful.
make sense though. Like that, like
But they still have high tech screens and keyboards and all kinds of shit like that. They just made it aesthetically look more like the original show. Like it's a compromise.
think of it as the modern interpretation of a period piece. Think of it as Star Trek version of Bridgerton almost.
It's
It's
Hamilton.
modern interpretation. Yeah, there you go. Hamilton would be a better one.
I mean, okay.
Because Bridgerton is actually problematic in my eyes, but
Oh, I haven't seen it. I was
Whereas
just, I just
Hamilton
knew
isn't.
it was a modern interpretation.
Why is Bridgerton problematic?
we talked about it. You agreed with Elves in chat when I said it. It makes the assumption that you can solve racism very easily. In the case of that show, the argument is that if the king married a black woman, then racism would end, which is what happens in the show.
Sure, fair enough. But I don't think they're really trying to make a statement on solving racism, right? I think they're just like trying to like hand wave it away. Okay,
Yeah.
like we wanted to tell a story where we had all these people of different races in this period, and rather than having some long college experiment, they married, and so things were good. Like they weren't trying to like do all that. Like and like here's a love story.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I just think that there is like some tension there between the need to be able to include people in stories and have representation that everyone can look at these fantasies and sort of like see themselves in it. I think that's good. But I think the flip side of that is it does sort of that kind of hand waving does make a complicated problem sort of feel as if it doesn't like that it can be solved easily. I understand that's not their intent, but I think that may be what people get out of it. When people say racism isn't real and all this shit, or history exaggerates that kind of stuff, and it really wasn't that bad. That's the kind of stuff that like makes me think. This is why I love George R.R. Martin, because he shows warts and all, like.
But that's not what Bridgerton, because Bridgerton also doesn't like pay attention to like the like it doesn't address like the fact that like why is Britain so rich, right? Well, because of all the imperialism and all the terrible shit they're doing across the world.
Right.
Like that's not the story they're telling. Not every story has to be that way.
And somehow the people they're plundering manage to become lords and ladies in England too.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Somehow, exactly. But like not every story needs to be a struggle story, right? Like
I understand that.
Yeah, so
I understand that. That's why I'm saying I'm beside myself on it. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm saying I recognize both of those realities. I recognize that it's going to cause people to like, it's going to cause people to like dismiss the past in ways that, listen, I grew up with a Confederate flag as my school symbol. You've seen my crest with everything, all that kind of stuff, and we would hand wave that away too. Our school symbol was a Confederate colonel, and one year there was a different colonel every year who was our mascot, and one year it was a black guy who was our Confederate colonel, and that made everything okay. That justified the flag. It made people used that as an excuse for years, and we kept that Confederate flag for a long ass time. like way
Yeah,
longer
so-
than we should have.
As long as you acknowledge that's not the story they're trying to tell, and they're trying to do a different
Yes.
thing, but that it can still be harmful. All right, I guess I can
Yeah.
agree with that. I mean, because
I'm
I recognize all those
compartmentalizing
things
again.
as well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, hey, this doesn't make like. But I looked at it less from the race perspective. I was more willing to handle it that way. And more from the labor perspective and like the imperialism perspective.
Yes, no, I
That's-
understand. That's a problem too. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when I look at Hamilton, it's different from Bridgerton because with Hamilton, you know that it's black people playing white guys. Like, so you understand that. Like, you understand that they're not really black historically. And so you accept it. But with Bridgerton, I feel like, those are really supposed to be black people in those roles. Like, they're black people playing black people. But just in this impossibly ideal society, right? At least when it comes to certain women.
I haven't watched it. I only watched the trailer. But for me, it looked like a stylized, almost Disney-esque period piece. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because what I mean though is they were trying to show what they wish the world had been back then, as opposed to what it was.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to see what it was, although it's a slightly later time period, I love Downton Abbey.
Oh,
because
great,
it
great
really
show.
does show a lot of that kind of stuff, like what they lost in World War One, and here's the big thing. It's so funny because Fox News had a piece. They talked about it for weeks about how Downton Abbey shows you how good rich people are. Like, rich people aren't so bad, and they're in capitalism is a good thing, and Downton Abbey proves it. And it is absolute misunderstanding of Downton Abbey, because in Downton Abbey they're not rich because of capitalism. They're rich because they're feudal lords, and they're actually being threatened by capitalism because they make all these bad investments, and all this money that they inherited from feudal times starts capitalism is starting to eat away at the lifestyle that they have.
You can
And
tell they watched clips, not
it's
episodes.
yeah, it's the
of that.
Irish son-in-law who is actually the liberal. He's actually a socialist. He's a Marxist, and he's the one who. But back then, Marxism and capitalism were kind of like lumped together under liberalism, and so he came in, and he was the guy that sort of represented capitalism coming in, and he told the family like how to make their proper investments, and the family really hated the encroachment of capitalism into their way of life, and so Fox News flipped it. They got it entirely wrong. Capitalism was the threat to the family. It wasn't what made them rich and happy. It was feudalism that
trying
made
to
them.
explain to the right wing when capitalism actually became the predominant force is difficult.
Yeah.
Because they confuse mercantilism with capitalism.
Right, and this isn't even mercantilism. Like, this is straight up feudalism. They had a
because
plot of
they-
land that was given to
because
them
they
by the
confused
king
the first
centuries
two,
ago, and they
That's what I'm
just
saying.
ruled over it. And then people farmed, and that was it. Like, that was their economy. And so they got rich, but the people in the surrounding areas weren't. They just worked and they just happened to be a good family, but there were also bad families that had those things.
Oh, and they touched upon that. They the family friends who treated cut all staff to keep their wealth instead of helping their land, etc.
So transitioning from they were at the late stage of transitioning from that old feudal style to transitioning into capitalism, right? Because late 19th century, the Industrial Revolution had happened, but Downton Abbey itself was kind of escaped from that. Like, it was set away from that for a little while. It was sort of like, the Shire in Lord of the Rings was going to be the last thing to get consumed by Mordor eventually. It was like that. It was its own little shire, but by the end, you can see capitalism is taking over everything throughout the course of the show, and that's not presented as a good thing.
I mean, even the Dowager Empress becomes an investor, or Dowager Baroness, whatever she is.
The Dowager Countess.
Countess, that's
Something.
right. Yeah.
I think when she dies, that'll be symbolic of the old ways dying. And I think the Irish guy's gonna inherit everything eventually.
Well,
watched
maybe
it.
I'll watch it, so don't ruin everything.
Sorry. Yeah, you absolutely should watch it, Prime, but you have to watch it as a critique of capitalism. You have to keep that in mind when you're watching it.
See, I think any lefty will see it as that. Honestly,
Yeah. Just
I mean,
amazes me. Like if you're a conservative and you believe like in original conservatism, like you believe in monarchies and the king and all that, okay, yeah, then you'll agree that the family represents, conservatism. But it absolutely does not reflect capitalism.
well, and it's like, what was his name? The Matthew, the
Yeah,
primary guy.
right.
Like he was the middle ground. He was the one who
Yeah.
was being dragged in by the brother-in-law, but trying to hold to the old traditions because of father-in-law.
You know what I'd like to see if they ever do like a final movie? I'd like to see it like move forward through the decades so we
Oh
can
yeah,
see what
see their
happens to
kids,
Downton
their
Abbey in
grandkids.
in
Yeah,
the
that'd be
21st
awesome.
century.
That'd be a great way to end the series as a whole. Is show us
Sort of
Downton
like
Abbey
6 Feet Under kind of
2022.
ended that way. I don't know if you saw that. That was a
Like
good show.
have one of those fade transitions to it.
I haven't. I've heard good things about it, but oh my god, I hate this fucking. Oh,
Yeah. 6 Feet Under is you should absolutely
I
watch.
was about to say,
I love
Prime
historical
does all this
dramas.
shit with us. He doesn't have time to watch all this other shit we do. I
Yeah.
know.
Hey, listen, when I watch a historical drama like that, like Downton Abbey or any kind of thing set in historical times, I love to like watch them and in between episodes, like do Wikipedia deep dives. Like it's a great way to learn history to watch fiction and then do the reading.
I did that with Copper because it was talking about a time period I knew very little about and a place I knew very little about for that time period.
Copper's coming back.
Oh, they're bringing it back.
there's a show
Well,
called
I'm just
Copper.
saying, like Copper for
It was about the coppers of New York right after the end of the Civil War, or during the end of the Civil War, and it follows a Irish immigrant copper who is his best friend is a black doctor.
You just mean cops, right?
No, copper.
What's a copper?
Show it was a show on BBC America.
But what
I
is
was
a
thinking of the
copper?
metal copper that you mine.
Copper was the old slang term for cops before
For
it
cop,
became,
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what he
before
said.
it became
Cops.
cops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Copper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
this
I
is
thought you meant copper.
That's the title of the show. Copper.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just making
sorry.
sure. I thought we were talking about.
No.
I
If we're
was-
talking about
Cops,
cops,
yeah.
that's straight propaganda, my friend.
Well, I'm just saying the reason I said that
Mm-hmm.
is because we need copper for EVs, EV batteries.
Oh,
It's
that's
one of
yeah.
the big metals that you need.
I was talking about the show Copper. And
Yeah.
Prime actually did a long segment on the show Cops, the effects of it. I remember being in there for that one.
Oh, yeah.
That show was horrible for our country in so
Yeah.
many ways.
This, fucking propaganda bullshit. Yeah.
And it's like I'm a big cop
What you
procedural
gonna
guy.
do?
Like I like Law and Order, NCIS shows like that. But dude, like I could never get into cops because it always just felt.
I
fucked
I
up
did
to
get
me.
into Cops. I liked that show. It was like a compelling
Cops.
ass show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it
That
grabbed
cops was
you-
good.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't watch it, but to me, it always felt more like watching the train wreck.
It's a little bit exploitative, but it's also I think it's kind of interesting to see what their days like because we see all of the abuses that cops do, on an almost daily basis, but we don't really have a way of putting that in perspective. Like, what percentage of the time are they just like shooting people in the back and running away? Like, it's really what you're seeing is day to day what happens. And it sort of allows you to have that perspective on what the frequency is for.
I don't know. Maybe
These
I just
terrible
have a
things that
different
happen.
perspective because I grew up in Detroit. So when I saw the cops selling drugs out of their cop cars, when I saw cops shaking down kids for fucking shit, like I had a different experience with cops growing up than what I saw on TV.
Yeah, sure.
So it was like for me, it always just felt fucked up because I was like, wait a minute, what did we not see before the camera popped on?
Although at least we have, that's just it. It was a revolution when we got smartphones. Now we have a way of protecting ourselves. Do you know about that app, the ACLU app? No,
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
ACLU
Yeah,
app.
an article was written about it.
It's just an app that allows you, when you're filming encounters with the police or whatever you want to film, as you're filming, it puts it on the cloud. So if
Oh,
someone grabs your phone and stops it or whatever, the video is still there on the cloud.
cool.
It's
I actually
everyone
like that.
should have that on their phone.
Sorry,
There
say
was
that
some
again.
other-
So it's an app that's run by the ACLU, and what it does is it just works just like a video app, like on your camera app.
Yeah.
But as soon as you hit the button and start recording, it uploads it to the cloud in real time.
Okay.
So it's
So
like a
that
live
if someone
stream
if someone were
cloud.
to grab your phone and stomp on it or something, or if the police were to like confiscate your phone, that video would be in an account that you could access later.
Okay.
And it's just really a brilliant idea.
Yeah. It sounds like something I'll take a look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a link for that, put that in BC chat because I'm going to share that
Yeah,
with James.
it's
from the
on my
internet,
phone. I can look up the name of it right now.
Yeah.
because
where
James
my
from
phone
the
is.
internet is key about sharing stuff like that for people who do protests. And
Yeah,
things
hold
like
on a
that.
second. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Cat, stop trying to chew on my cord. It's a problem with having 4 cats and only 2 hands.
Or cat life, dude.
No,
Okay.
I have wife and kids. What it is we adopted a stray, and then she had kittens. We just never got rid of the kittens.
Oh, well, that's sweet.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm looking for it now, and I'm having to scroll through a bunch of shit. And it just occurred to me you should make it one of the apps that's in the bottom that always shows on the bottom of your phone, so you don't have to go fucking looking for it.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to turn it on fast. Let's see.
I don't know. I have one of those USB-C.
It's called the
rollout keyboard.
ACLU Mobile Justice app.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna share that with James because
It has a little red fist as the icon.
Well, because it's like I'm out of the activism game now. Like I'd go to a protest, but I'm not doing any of the shit I did, during like Occupy Wall Street and crap like that. I'm too old for that. I got too much to lose. But like for the people who are still doing that stuff, they need those kind of apps to protect themselves because if they're doing something wrong, the video is going to show that. If the cops are doing something wrong, the video is going to show that too. It protects both sides that it's videotaped, and that's a good thing in my opinion. Because I'm not one of those ACAB guys. As much as the more and more I see.
Here's the other thing. Can you see this, Prime?
Start pushing that way.
Oh, one second before I just need to.
All right, tell me when
You
you're
were a
ready.
little off camera, Aiko. Move it closer to where
Well,
your
I
mic
just wanted to say when you're setting up the app, I have to set it up again because I have a new phone. I just realized.
Okay.
When you're setting up the app, this is different than what it used to do. It asks you what state you're in, and then it asks you for your trusted contacts. So if someone were to take your phone, that video would be accessible not just by you, but by the people that you designate in your app as your trusted contacts.
Okay.
So you can say, if like a buddy of yours sees that you just got arrested, they can access that video.
Okay.
Interesting.
I'm downloading it now. Mobile Justice.
Yep, there you go.
I'm gonna put this on my phone. Yeah. Find someone trusted.
Yeah, everybody should have it. If you go to protests, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, here in my state, there's not exactly a whole lot of protests.
Man, there's a shit
about
ton of them
anything
here.
I would
If I
support.
if I were streaming, which I will be hopefully in next month or something, if I were streaming, I would have gone. If I were streaming earlier, I would have gone to all those dumb JFK Jr. or whatever it was, the protests
RFK?
that were
RFK?
happening here in Dallas. Yeah, who they think that he's RFK Jr. That he's not really dead and he's gonna be the vice presidential candidate for Trump and all that stuff.
Oh, never mind. I
no,
thought
that
you were
was
talking about
JFK.
the pandemic denier.
Yeah.
Oh no,
I forget which
talking
one.
about, you were
I
talking about
confused
JJ. You were talking about John.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
John was coming back.
JFK Jr. didn't really die, and when he's going to come back, and when he does, he's going to be Trump's vice president. And those people were protesting in Dallas like all the time. And so if I'd have gone down there with like, with my cell phone and a microphone or whatever, it would have made great content. It's kind of stuff IRI does sometimes when he can, get there.
Pause for a second. Hey guys, I've been doing this for a while. And I'm done for right now, but we'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully I can start at a reasonable time. Either that, or I might be having a debate with Cherry, maybe tomorrow, but it depends on her schedule. So anyway, thanks all for stopping by. Definitely appreciate you. And yeah, we'll continue on in the future. Have a good one, everyone.
All right,
bye.
peace, man.
You can chill for a second.
I think you should end in stream, Brento.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. Bye.